Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Bramber, and alongside me is Logan Camden, and you know the routine. Today, we are going to be breaking down all the action that we just saw on this Week 8 NFL Sunday, starting with the game between two of the biggest brands in football. We had Cowboys, 49ers, Sunday Night Football, two teams with high preseason expectations, two teams that had been pretty disappointing up to this point. The Niners win this one, Logan. We get something of a comeback from the Cowboys. I mean, they get the ball down one score with more than 3 minutes to go, but they ultimately can't make anything out of that. So it is a Niners win. They get to even ground at 4-4 on the year. What was your biggest takeaway from this game?
I don't know if I really have a big takeaway from this game. And this was a weird ass game, Carson.
It
I mean,
was.
I thought the Niners were going to run away with this game in the second half, right? They kind of shot themselves in the foot in the first half, some self-inflicted wounds, and then they come out guns a-blazing. They get Dallas off the field early in the second half, and it looks like they're going to run away with it. And then classic Dak, man. Let me throw multiple interceptions prior to leading the comeback, and then we're going to make it close at the end just to let everybody down. I mean, my big takeaway, and I hate doing this negatively, like I just don't take the Cowboys seriously whatsoever, man. Not that it's a bad loss in the sense that Dallas does make it close at the end and the fact that they lose to the Niners, right? Like this is a good football team still, but I've been steadily disappointed with Dak's performance early in games, man. Turnovers have been a real issue this season, like even down to the last drive, right? Like he almost gives the game away on the final drive right to Fred Warner on the first pass. Like I don't know what's going on with him, man. It's been an uncharacteristically bad season taking care of the football, right? A couple years ago, Dak throws 20 plus interceptions. You think that's his deal? Or he gets
Hold on.
close.
He
It was
didn't
what,
throw
like
20
15,
plus
16?
interceptions.
It was
It was
close.
15. He only played 12 games, though. So who knows
That's
what he could
why.
have done?
That's why.
Could have had a
Yeah.
vintage Eli Manning season, but he didn't. He didn't quite get there.
And I don't know about you, Carson, but over the last few years, I've thought that the Dak Prescott that I've come to know and expect on a week-to-week basis is more the guy we got last year, 36 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. And I don't know, man, it seems like he has reverted to his old tendencies, man. There is a very large burden on Dak to carry this entire offense, right? There's no running game. They trotting out Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle's absence, man.
Hilarious.
It is hilarious. Like,
They have
dude,
the
this is a
all-washed team out there. Literally the all-washed team.
I was going to say, this is a super team in 2016, man. They're going to win the Super Bowl. I just think the Cowboys are a joke, man. I think we're in store, Carson, for an overhaul this offseason. I think Dak's going to stick around. I think you're going to see some of the other big stars stick around. Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Deron Bland-Diggs. I think all those guys are going to be back. CeeDee Lamb, too, right? Those guys got paid. I think McCarthy's on his way out. I think they're going to overhaul the coaching staff, and I think it's time, man. I don't even know if McCarthy's really the problem. I don't think Mike McCarthy's a good coach. I think the bigger problem is still Jerry Jones and that he's still running this organization. I just don't take the Cowboys serious, man. And I don't really know what it's going to take for the Cowboys to ever get on. It's going to take Jerry passing away, man. The Cowboys are jokes, dude.
Yeah, they just aren't good. And I think that you hit on a key point when you're talking about the way in which they aren't good, because I was too high on this team preseason, clearly way too high. But there are a lot of aspects of the Cowboys that suck right now that just wouldn't surprise me at all, right? If you're going to tell me that this defense doesn't have Micah Parsons or DeMarcus Lawrence out there, like, yeah, it's not a surprise at all that they suck, right? I wouldn't have expected this to be a decent defense without their greatest strength by far on the field, that being their super dynamic edge rusher tandem. And their depth, even at that position, is decimated. That's not a surprise. The fact that their run game sucks, is it really exceptionally bad? Yeah, but fundamentally, that's not a surprise. What disappoints me is that Dak Prescott is just not playing well. And I have defended Dak. I had him 7th in my quarterback rankings coming into the year. I thought that he played a really, really good year of football last year. I thought that although he wasn't good in the playoff game, that was more about the defense. And he has just continually forced balls and made bad decisions this year. And there is a serious amount of pressure on him here because he doesn't have a run game, because the defense is often hemorrhaging points. And he feels like, okay, I have to go out there and put this offense on my back. But that doesn't excuse that both interceptions in this game are just completely forced. And you mentioned easily could have had a third that ended this game after the sort of fake comeback that has seemingly become the Dak special this year. Like we had it in the Ravens game, right? Where you can't necessarily call that a fake comeback because they come storming back. It feels fake early, then it's real, then it ends up being fake because they fall
That's
short
what's
anyways.
sorry. That's what's so funny to me about the comebacks is because it's always when there's no pressure. There's no, right?
Yeah.
Dak can play carefree football in those situations because you already lost the game, and then the second you crank, you put that fire right back to
Yeah.
Dak. He
Well,
crumbles,
Dak, you can win. I'd rather not. Also, I will say this all leads into my anti-prevent defense manifesto, Logan. I was just texting with you about this, but teams need to start going to prevent defense way later in games, right? Prevent defense is supposed to be situationally we're trying to stop an explosive play because like that's the only way you're going to get back into the game, right? And I'm talking about really any sort of soft zone that you see these teams turn to, like late third quarter, sometimes early fourth quarter. If you're facing a good NFL quarterback, like they're going to pick apart these soft zones and no, they're not going to get it all in one play, but they're going to get 10, 15-yard chunks. That's a 6-play touchdown drive. They're running no huddle. That took 2 minutes. Like that's not effective defense. If you've built a 3-touchdown lead, which you probably have if you're turning to, again, a much more conservative defense, just keep doing what you've been doing. Don't give them the same look over and over again where you're playing way off of dudes and you're rushing 4 every single time. It's so predictable. It's just light work for a good NFL quarterback, and that's what Dak is. But yeah, I'm not moved by the fact that he was able to lead a couple of touchdown drives against those looks. He's thrown 8 picks this year, and that's inexcusable regardless of the pressure that he does feel. So the Cowboys aren't good. There's no surprise there. How about the Niners end of this? Does this move you at all in a positive way for them?
A little bit. I'd still say just with how decimated the Niners have been, I was impressed with Brock Purdy tonight. I know Dallas's defense is decimated as well, but Purdy creates with his legs in this one a lot. He's scrambling, made some plays, and hit on big shot plays to George Kittle, found Debo. Like, I don't worry about the Niners when they have one or two weapons that Brock can go to. I really worry about the Niners when they're down everybody. You know what I mean? When you're really relying on the Jawan Jennings of the world, when you got to count on Ronnie Bell to make some plays, when you're looking at, a rookie like Ricky Pearsall, right? Finally getting on the field. But when they have guys that are available, I really do trust Brock. And I know the pendulum has swung ironically back in the other direction this season with Brock, talking about him as if he's chopped liver, as if he's this horrible bum, 7th round, no name, Mr. Irrelevant quarterback. And it's like people want to rewrite the entire book on Brock now, going, oh, well, he's a scrub. This is why he's a 7th round pick, right? Oh, when he's winning games, it's the miracle story. He's a winner. And now that the Niners have hit a skid down star players, everybody wants to crap on him. I still think Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback. Now, if you think Brock is this MVP level superstar caliber guy, that's where I would disagree. But I trust Brock as a playmaker. I normally trust Brock to take care of the football. And I thought he did a good job tonight. And I was impressed with Guerrero stepping in for Jordan Mason. Their running back depth continues to impress me, man. No matter who is in there, like this offensive line gets pushed, creates lanes, and anybody can run the ball in this offense. So, I'm not significantly moved by San Francisco, and I'm still a little bit worried about this team just closing out games in general, man. Like, this could have very easily, right, if Kevontae Turpin catches a ball up the sideline that hits him in the chest, if Dak somehow finds a way to drive. This one was very much in the balance with 2 minutes remaining. The Cowboys could have won this football game. So it doesn't significantly move me, but I'm glad that Brock played a good game. I still trust Brock. I think he's an above average quarterback. And when he has weapons, I'm confident in this offense producing. But I don't know, man. Kyle Shanahan's got to figure out how to close games out more convincingly. And if it's turning away from prevent defense, I think it can get overstated a little bit, Carson, considering that he's blown, 2 double-digit fourth-quarter leads in the Super Bowl. I think that's like Kyle Shanahan's shtick at this point. When the Niners have a lead late, it's almost like people expect them to blow it.
Well,
that's
but Logan,
one area.
The real stat, I mean, we just talked about this the other week ago. Simultaneously, the reputation for Shanahan is that he can't come from behind, which is far more true, but I attribute that more to quarterback play, that he hasn't had elite quarterback play. Suddenly it's shifting to they can't close games, when in reality, the loss that they took to the Cardinals was the first touchdown plus lead that they've blown in the Shanahan era in the regular season in the fourth quarter, though. I mean, they were something ridiculously good and won after that. So it's bad in this game. But again, don't run a prevent defense when there is so much time left on the clock. Every near comeback scare, oh my God, we were up 25. What happened, that we've seen this year is because teams turn to prevent too early. The Vikings against the Packers, the most blitz-heavy defense in football, they get too conservative. All of a sudden, that's a ball game. Ravens against the Cowboys earlier this year. Stop doing it. It doesn't work.
I mean, this isn't like a new revelation. I agree with you, but I mean, prevent defense has been a problem for this whole millennia, right? This whole century. Yeah. Like, I think back always to the Super Bowl where the Patriots played the Giants, and it's like the reason Eli was able to hit a couple of big shot plays in that Super Bowl and get back in. Patriots drop into prevent defense. I think about the 13-second game with the Bills and the Chiefs.
That's
leave Travis Kelce completely uncovered, right? Like, I just think prevent defense is a flawed idea anyway. And again, the fact that you're just going to concede 10 to 20-yard chunk plays, you are conceding points. You are giving them away free points. And like you said, when your defense has been playing good football, why are you changing it, right? Even, the Bears game today, we're going to talk about that game in a little bit, but the Hail Mary, the Bears can't get pressure. Jayden Daniels scrambles around, buys a ton of time, launches a bomb. Hail Mary TD. I hate it. I think it's worse, man. I think you are asking to be punished if you run it, man. And I completely agree. I think it needs to be done away with. I'm way more for bringing pressure until the game's over and applying pressure on the quarterback than just conceding plays.
Or just do what works for you. Do what you've been doing that is successful. I think if you're the Niners right now, with everything that's happened this year, you're okay with where you're at. You've had a couple games that you just blew, a couple really weird losses, like to the Cardinals, like to the Rams. You've been ravaged by injuries. And after all that, you're tied for the lead in your division. And they have still a tough schedule coming up. But I think that they're in a good position to go out there, win your division. That's all you have to do if you're the Niners. Get into the playoffs, get healthy, and get hot at the right time, right? You're not going to be in contention for the 1 seed or whatever preseason expectation you would have had there. But if you go 10-7, I think that's enough to win the NFC West. And then again, if you figure out some of these things and you get healthier, then you're a dangerous team because you're still so damn talented. Now, some of this injury stuff isn't going to get better, right? Ayuk is done for the year. Hargrave, done for the year. But apparently there's a good chance that CMC is back right after the bye. And I think the second you get him back out there, you're an elite offense. And I do think that this Niners defense is still solid. It's not maybe what we expected or hoped for, but I think that they're fine. And so if you have an elite offense, solid defense, you're a really good football team. Brock, as you mentioned, I think maybe overly criticized this year. It always depends with him. People are always too far in one direction or the other, but we've definitely seen him doing more creation this year, using his legs more than ever before. And I thought he was really effective in that way in this game. And he's had to do more. But when you reintroduce Christian McCaffrey into this offense, I think that changes, because I think that you just have one of the most effective check down targets in football. It takes a little pressure off Brock's shoulders, and Juwan Jennings will come back, and he's really good. I like Ricky Pearsall a lot. I thought that he was really impressive out there today. So obviously you lose something without Ayuk on the field, but they're still the Niners, and they still have really good depth at receiver, and they get the best running back in football back out there on the field. Like, I don't think the sky is falling for them. Have I been underwhelmed? Absolutely. Am I lower on them than I was preseason? Yes. But I was impressed with how they played today, especially after last week, because last week was not good. They were just soundly outplayed. But as we've talked about, a couple of the other losses, I think, were more fluky, not as concerning to me going forward. And I think that they're still the clear favorites in their divisions. And with all of the drama and all of the disastrous circumstances they have had to work their way through up to this point, to be in that spot right now, you're fine with.
And it'll make them stronger, too, if they can come through this on the other side unscathed, right? Like, it's not just CMC, too. I mean, they could get Dre Greenlaw back for, a playoff run potentially later in this season. If McCaffrey comes back, I think the Niners could still do major damage in the playoffs. I don't really see, a runaway favorite in the NFC, right? The Niners aren't my favorite right now. I think I'd still take Detroit. Minnesota's really, really solid still. I know a lot of people are jumping off their ship, but it's up for grabs. It's in the balance, right? I wouldn't count the Niners out by any means. And the biggest reason is the fact that they still do have elite talent at very important positions. On the offensive line, this is a really good unit in the trenches. Most importantly, they have a star edge rusher in Nick Bosa who can wreak havoc on the game. I mean, his fingerprints are all over this football game. They're too talented to count out. Brock Purdy still got George Kittle and Deebo Samuel. If McCaffrey comes back, this team is way too talented to count out. And like when we're looking at other contenders too, I like them more than I like Philly, right? I know Philly's been on a little bit of a heater. I still have more faith in this organization and this team than I do Philadelphia. I just like their foundation more. So in no way am I ready to count out the Niners, man. I still think they're a contender in the NFC.
Yeah. Again, I think that they've dropped from that top tier. I do like Detroit more. I do like Minnesota more. But outside of that, I think everybody's sort of in a pack. I like Green Bay more than San Francisco at the moment. But when you start talking Commanders, Eagles, Falcons, I've been impressed with. The Niners are right in that mix. And everybody has a flaw. So I definitely don't think you can rule out the possibility of them going out there and making a run. And I feel like with the way that a lot of people have been talking about the Niners recently, you wouldn't think that. But that's the spot that they're in. A couple of those teams, Logan, who are in the mix, at least on the outskirts of the NFC playoff conversation. Well, one of these teams is right in the thick of it, leading their division. Bears Commanders was kind of hyped up as maybe the game of the week because we get to see the two shining star rookie quarterbacks, Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams, face off. This game could not end in a crazier fashion. Jayden Daniels scrambles around in the backfield, throws up a Hail Mary that is deflected and ends up in the hands of Noah Brown for a game-winning touchdown as time expired. What was your biggest takeaway from this one?
I mean, we can just start with like what a crazy ending to this game this was, man. This made me stand up out of my seat and I just yelled, "Oh my God, oh my God." I started jumping up and down like I don't know, like I was on a pogo stick, man. My sister looked at me like I was crazy because she didn't know what was going on. And I told her, like, this never happens. This is as crazy as a finish to a football game gets. First, I just got to commend Jayden Daniels to buy all that time behind the pocket. Like he's running behind the line of scrimmage like he's Fran Tarkenton or Archie Manning back there. Buys
Timely
the time.
references, as always, Logan. Very relevant to the kids.
I mean, nobody runs around like those guys anymore, man. But Jayden did on that play.
No, sure. Nobody really scrambles these days.
Like that, man. You know what I mean. Get off. Hop off, please, bro. But it was a designed, like, that's what Jayden was trying to do. Throw it into the crowd of people, hope that it bounces off. That's the way that those Hail Marys go. You couldn't have drawn it up any better. The one thing I will say, have you seen the video circulating of Tyreek Stevenson? Mm-hmm. He's cut, right? I'm cutting him from my football team.
What is he doing? For anybody who hasn't seen it, as the ball has been snapped, he is turning to Commanders fans and talking shit. He doesn't turn his head to the play until it's probably 3 seconds deep. And then, of course, he eventually finds his way to the crowd, but he's the one who deflects the ball that is caught.
Yeah. Just laughable stuff. I mean, karma in real time, man, like celebrating before you win. It's just classic stuff like that. Jayden ends this game with 378 total yards and a TD, and obviously they weren't great in, finishing drives and getting in the end zone, but to me, it's really impressive. This is one of the best defenses that Jayden has played. The Bears rank number 3 in terms of yards per attempt. They're the number 3 passing defense. They're the number 4 scoring defense. They're the number 5 defense in terms of yards per play. They're number 8 in pressure rate. Like, this is an elite unit, and to make that happen is just remarkable, man. And Chicago almost survived shooting themselves in the foot in this game. They had some some head-scratching moments. There was one where a sack pushes them out of field goal range in the first half towards the end. The biggest one, they're on the goal line. Eberflus tries handing the ball to a backup center, and it's just another
brilliant
dumbass play call in a series of dumbass play calls this year, especially in the red zone. The other one that I think of is the speed option on 4th down, where you're just going, what are we doing, man? Like, Caleb fumbles the ball in the snap. Like, I'm not going to put that on the big man, but I don't know what you're doing trying to hand the rock to him. Like me, Carson, I don't, and there's other teams that we'll talk about later in this show that just made some really weird play calls today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting my hands 90% of the time, chips are down on the table, just in the hands of my best player. I'm just going to let Caleb throw the ball. Or, I don't know, I'm going to hand the ball off to a running back, a guy who normally is, going to run the ball. Like, I just don't get why we feel the need to get so cute with this stuff, man. A handoff to the backup center?
I agree completely.
Eberflus, do you want to lose your job? Like,
well, let's give Shane Waldron the due amount of blame here as well.
True.
Because
probably
he's
Waldron.
the mastermind behind all of this goal line chicanery. Eberflus is okaying it, and I think that the entire Chicago coaching staff is terrible. But I'm with you. I thought that was disastrous, and really just my biggest takeaway from this game for Chicago is like your coaching staff sucks. That is an unserious play call at that moment in the game. There's just way too much that can go wrong. But then you manage to come back from that. You take the lead. And then I understand that a Hail Mary is always a freak play, right? If it does work out. But there's generally something that the defense does do wrong, right? Like we see that with the Bills against the Jets, where they have two guys who are solely dedicated to defending out routes. And so, yeah, they end up in a numbers disadvantage where they shouldn't have been, and they literally have no chance to get pressure. In this case, you have to keep one defender behind the ball, right? You have to have a guy there to match the receiver who is ready for a deflection. Like, yes, it's a crazy play. It worked out perfectly for Washington, but that shouldn't just be an easy, completely uncontested catch for Noah Brown. And when you have Tyreek Stevenson over jacking his jaws when the play is going on, it's just like, what sort of culture do you have? And like, are you preparing these guys for the biggest play of the game? That to me is, yes, on Tyreek individually, but also like that has to fall on the coaching staff. That's just entirely unserious stuff in a series of unserious moments that we've seen from the Bears coaching staff.
I completely agree. I couldn't agree more, man. It does fall on the coaching staff. It's like great teams are going to have practiced that, and they're going to have told their guys, hey, one of you is going to be planted in the back of the end zone, or leading up to the snap just alone. Hey, Tyreek, plant your dumb ass in the back of the left side of the end zone and bat it down if it gets, just good teams are going to be ready for moments like that. It always reminds me of, I've brought this up on the pod before, Jeff Fisher. Think about what you want of him as a head coach. Every day at the end of every Jeff Fisher practice, they practiced the Music City Miracle, that lateral that we saw that ended a playoff game between the Titans and the Bills. As strange of a scenario that is to practice, a game-winning kickoff return lateral, Jeff Fisher wanted to make sure that if they ever ran into that scenario where it's a do or die, one play to go, they were going to be prepared and ready to run that play. It reminds me of...
And that's why he's the GOAT. And that's why Jeff Fisher's the greatest to ever do it.
Something like that. It reminds me of semi-pro. Man, Woody Harrelson runs the puke with Jackie Moon until it is ingrained in their brain. And guess what? In the biggest moment of that team's franchise history, they won fourth place because they ran the puke. It was ingrained in their brains, Carson. They didn't need to think when they ran the play. It was just unconscious. Basically, what I'm saying is, I think the Bears coaching staff sucks, and their guys are unprepared, man. Their guys are unprepared. It sticks out on tape. I do. I put this loss on coaching more than anything else, man.
Yeah, I think you got to be done with Eberflus. Clearly, they're not up to the caliber of the Flint Tropics or any Jeff Fisher-led team. I do want to give some credit to Caleb Williams for how he ended this game, though, because in spite of some of that idiocy, I thought on the last two drives, he really did a phenomenal job and made some specific plays that stood out. Second to last drive, I mean, just a beautiful throw with a free rusher bearing down on him, hangs tough in the pocket, delivers the ball to DJ Moore. That gets them inside the 10 before they have the brilliant handoff to the backup center. And then on the final drive, you get it back. 3rd and 10, really tough spot. Throws a nice ball to Rome Odunze, hangs in the pocket again. Then you have the 2nd and 5 where he makes a pass rusher miss and he finds Keenan Allen back across the middle, floats it to him, leads him really nicely. I was most impressed, I think, just by his pocket presence in those spots, though, because we have seen Caleb at times. He's been under a ton of pressure this year, but sometimes he bails on those pockets a little bit quickly, not in the most important drives of this game. And he kept his eyes downfield, and I was really impressed by that. He led you on 2 potential go-ahead touchdown drives, and one of them they actually did finish, and he did get a go-ahead touchdown for you, and then you let up a Hail Mary. Like, that's just a crazy event that obviously he has nothing to do with. You absolutely need more in the first 3 quarters because they got nothing through the air. And although I thought this Washington defense played well today, this is not a good defense. And we know that. This is a defense that is not talented, that has been towards the bottom of the league in most metrics this entire year. But if the narrative becomes that Caleb fell short, I just don't agree with that. He put you in the position to win this game twice. Jayden outplayed him. Jayden is better this year. There's just no question about that. But Caleb was clutch, and he put you in the position to win this game. And I think that's what you ask of your rookie quarterback in that spot.
Well, I mean, that's the takeaway if they don't commit the Hail Mary, right? That one play swings the entire perception of this game. The one thing I do agree with is that I would rather have Jayden Daniels right now. I do think that Jayden just has more poise, more pro ready. He's just so
more accurate. The legs are more special.
Yeah. But I still do, and people may disagree with this. I know that this is a very polarizing conversation. It always is between the number 1 and number 2 quarterback. I still do want Caleb Williams for the long term.
I agree.
And again, dude, you mentioned it. You see some of the flashes of special playmaking, and it's sad because it's going to get swept under the rug because Jayden completely steals his thunder with the Hail Mary. That's how it naturally goes. And he does statistically outperform him, but Caleb's got special moments on those final 2 drives that really did impress me. Again, let's set the table for Caleb as well. The pressure's on. His back is against the wall. They have no other choice but to get down the field and score a touchdown, and that's exactly what they did. You know, it is on a defensive pass interference, but they had to hold Keenan Allen on that play because he was going to go and score a touchdown. So I'm still really impressed with Caleb. You see the flashes of playmaking, and some of the stuff of him getting out of the pocket, dude. Caleb is hemmed up and is dancing around dudes to create space. So I know that there's not a statistical argument. And I do. If you were asking me who I would rather have start for next game, a 1-game scenario this season, no question it's Jayden. But long term, I still do believe in Caleb. I think he's going to be the better quarterback. And I think both of these guys are franchise guys, but I do marginally prefer Caleb.
I agree. I think that there's just so much arm talent, so much creation there still to tap into. Jayden's more of a finished product. Jayden was in college for a long time, Logan, and I do think that he immediately fit into an offense that was very well built for him with Cliff. Now, he is awesome. He's one of the best rookie quarterbacks that we've ever seen. And for him, this is like a down week, I guess you would say. And he gives you 380 total yards and averages 8.6 yards per attempt against a very good defense. That just tells you the sort of special season that he's having, that he's established that standard and transformed this Washington offense into one of the league's elite when nobody would have expected that coming into the year, looking at their personnel. And just what he did, keeping that final Hail Mary play alive. Like, yes, Chicago's only rushing 4, but he like makes multiple defenders fall down. I mean, he's just so shifty back there, ends up able to fully get his feet set after like probably 6.5 seconds of running around back there and launch that ball. That's really impressive. And this Washington offense is just great. They have 480 yards of offense in this game. They have a missed field goal. They couldn't finish in the red zone. Like, this was definitely their worst offensive performance because of, again, some of that situational stuff where they didn't finish drives and they weren't as good on third down as we're used to, but they moved the ball against this defense and they deserve this win. And I don't think that there's any question that this is a legitimate playoff team. I mean, I've been on that side of the aisle for a few weeks now, even with the questions that I have about their defense that remain. I just think the offense is even better. And both these teams have playoff potential. Both these teams are ahead of schedule. With what Chicago's doing defensively and Caleb's progress, they're in a really, really tough division, but they're both there. They're both in those conversations, and I expect Washington to make it. And props to both these rookie quarterbacks for stepping in and doing that immediately, because I do think this is a special class that we're looking at, because I love Drake May too. I think Drake May is another dude who has the look of a future star. That is rare to have the first 3 dudes all hit or at least inspire that sort of confidence.
I mean, dude, I've been saying it. Like, I don't know if all these guys are going to reach the apexes of these quarterbacks, but to me, you're looking at the 3 best quarterbacks in football reimagined. Like Lamar with Jayden, Caleb with Mahomes, and then Josh Allen with Drake May. Like, again, I think for any of those guys to reach that kind of where those guys are at is lofty expectations, but it's not out of the question. I think all of them are franchise guys, man. And it is rare. Like, even the 2018 class, right? You get Baker, you get Josh, and you get Lamar out of that class.
And Sam Darnold now.
True, fair. I said it in the video I did on Jayden Daniels, but I think it has the potential to be one of the greatest QB classes of all time, up there with Elway's class. You got Marino in there too, up there with the 04 class. I think there's real potential there.
Yeah, and we mentioned 2020 when we were having this discussion. That's a really, really good class in recent years. Let's talk, though, Logan, about one of those guys who was already at that superstar level when you're talking about what Jayden Daniels could aspire to be. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, they've been riding high. They had a dominant Monday Night Football win last week over the Bucs. They come crashing down to earth. They lose to the Cleveland Browns, now led by none other than Jameis Winston. The Browns, of course, now free of Deshaun Watson after he tore his Achilles. What's your biggest takeaway from this upset?
God bless you, Jameis Winston. God bless you, man.
Big win.
The Browns can win football games now. Hallelujah, man. They've gotten rid of the Antichrist. Like, it is possible now. The Browns can go and win some football games.
Defeated.
Jameis Winston and the Browns offense in this game surpassed every single season high single game mark for Deshaun Watson in his first start. The offense hadn't scored 20 points in a game coming into this one. Scored 29 in this one. Watson hadn't thrown for 250 yards or 3 TDs in the game. Winston puts up 334 and 3 TDs. This was the worst third down team in the league. They convert more than 50% of them today. They go 8 of 15. And the receivers look great. This is a group that just traded away Amari Cooper. Cedric Tillman looks legit. He had 8 catches for 81 yards last week against Cincinnati. And this one, he's got 7 for 99 yards and 2 of them TDs. Elijah Moore has 8 for 85. Njoku has 5 for 61 and 1. And this was the worst offensive line in the league. And dare I say it, Carson, I think they blocked better for Jameis. Like, they were dead last in every category, pressures, QB hits, everything. They still got penalized a lot in this game, but they blocked well for him. And Jameis played a really, really good game. This is one of the best games I've ever seen Jameis Winston play in his entire career. And I'll say this, Jameis almost throws multiple costly interceptions in this one. Baltimore drops at least 2 or 3. And that might be being generous to Jameis. Like, Baltimore had ample opportunities to swing this game. Specifically, the biggest one that I remember is Kyle Hamilton on the final drive. I think it's the play before Jameis throws the TD, the shot play. Kyle just drops one that is, I mean, he is bringing it into his body as he drops that ball. So, you know, it wasn't a flawless game. You're never going to get a flawless Jameis Winston game, but this was a great performance because compared to normal Jameis, this was methodical. This was accurate, and it was controlled, man. And he was good situationally. I already mentioned the third down mark. That was really hard to do. Every big third down, Jameis and them were converting, and he leads the game-winning drive. He had the opportunity. He capitalized on it. That post-game interview was hilarious. He thanked God, and he shouted out Eminem in the same breath. That was awesome.
That he did.
But, you know, we talked about this through the first 7 weeks of the season with Deshaun, Carson. The psychological aspect of this outweighed any of the talent issue. And I think Jameis is a much better quarterback talent-wise than Deshaun Watson. But Jameis is a great leader. He's a great locker room presence. And more important, he's just a guy that you can rally behind. And I felt like you felt this team. I'm going to say momentum. The momentum conversation on Twitter is pretty funny. Some people don't think momentum's real. I mean, you feel it with this team, though, dude. Like, the tide has changed. This defense played a phenomenal game. They felt, you know, invigorated. They felt inspired that Jameis was behind under center for them, right? They felt like they had an opportunity to win the game, and this rest of this offense was fired up. Like, the crowd was, duh. We've been saying this all season long. It took Deshaun tearing his Achilles for this to happen. But that's the other side that I have to give credit for. The Browns defense played excellent. They held the best third down offense to 2 of 10 on third downs. I thought you saw phenomenal coverage on the back end. I got to give a shout out to Denzel Ward. He currently leads the NFL in pass breakups. He has a big one in this one. Constant pressure from the D-line, from Smith and Garrett. They had a great game. And Dude, I don't think the Ravens had a first down I don't think they converted a third down in the first half. Like they completely shut down the Ravens in the first half. And also, the Browns overcome a really almost costly error at the end of the first half. If you remember, Jameis and them have a lead, and they could take the ball into the half if they just run out the clock. Jameis fumbles the ball. The Ravens end up scoring a touchdown in the first half, and they're still able to overcome that. So, look, the best decision the Browns have made this season was to start Jameis. And again, it was inadvertent because Deshaun got hurt. All I can say to Cleveland is please learn from your past mistakes. We can all do this as human beings, man, right? Just, we can grow from them. We can become better people by learning from our past mistakes. Cleveland, re-sign Jameis. And when Deshaun Watson does come back fully healthy, just immediately, if you can, find a stake, ram it through his heart. Yeah. Please note, Nerd Sesh, Carson, and Logan do not condone any murdering of any person across the United States. This is all
super
facetious.
Anti-murder.
We're being facetious. Declare him the starter the second Deshaun Watson comes back. Like, just, you let Flacco slip through your hands. Please don't do it with Jameis. And if Stefanski, if Haslam comes up to you and demands that you start Watson because of the money thing, smack him one right across the grill and tell him he's a dumbass. Just don't make the mistake again, please, man, because you can win games with Jameis. You can't win games with Deshaun. I just really hope they learn from their mistakes, man. Jameis, because I was telling my boy Mark was all juiced up because he's a Browns fan, and I told him Jameis can be the guy. And he goes, no, Jameis can't be the guy. And I said, no, like, obviously, he's not going to be your star franchise quarterback. The Browns guy was Baker Mayfield, and they let him go. But Jameis is a really good spot starter and transition guy that is going to win you football games, because I think the alternative, Carson, that a lot of people have proposed with this Browns team and the current state that they're in is to trade away this members of this elite defense to rebuild. And I think that is the stupidest thing that the Cleveland Browns could do, because, one, you just don't trade away a generational player like Myles Garrett. That's when I think it's stupid when jackasses come on the TV and say you should trade TJ or you should trade Myles Garrett. You should never trade one of those guys unless you're going to get 6 first-round picks back, right? Something ridiculous like that. The Browns' defense is so great, they shouldn't tear down any of it. They should not deal away any assets, because you can't. You're so close. And with Jameis, I just think that they have a real opportunity, maybe not to make a playoff push this year, but next year, if they can keep this team together, there's a real chance. You can win games with Jameis Winston, and that's the most important thing. Please play him for as long as you got him, and play him over Deshaun, man. Jameis can win you games.
Yeah, I struggle to see the justification for being like, we got to blow this up when you are just screwed for as long as you have Deshaun Watson's contract. But you were able to sneak into the playoffs last year. Your defense is that good. And your offense was functional last season before you downgraded to one of the worst starting quarterbacks that we've seen in this league in a long time. And then your offense became one of the worst that we've seen in a long time. But you're down Amari Cooper, right? Nick Chubb is back out there, but he's not the dynamic threat that he was early last season yet. Hopefully he gets there. And nevertheless, like, you have a legitimately good offensive performance just because you have a decent quarterback out there and you win a football game against a really good team. I will say, I think that Jameis is a clear upgrade. I mean, we have been banging the drum on this one. You have to get off of Deshaun. He's just horrible. Not get off in terms of like actually move him, because that's just not an option. Nobody's taking on that contract. He's a horrible football player on a massive guaranteed contract, but just bench him, right? Because he doesn't give you a chance to win football games. Jameis does more so, but I thought that this was really disappointing from the Ravens because they had several missed opportunities in this game. You mentioned, especially defensively, they just let the team down. There was early in this game a spot where Jameis held onto the ball for probably like 7 seconds, and then he just let it rip to the end zone. And I thought, oh my God, somebody's open down there. He threw it right at a DB. It hit a DB right in the hands and he dropped it. Kyle Hamilton had a chance to end this game, as you mentioned, with a pretty easy interception, and he dropped it. And there were some offensive missed opportunities. Lamar missed Zay Flowers open on a touchdown. 3rd and 14 late in the game. Lamar makes an incredible play, scrambling, rolling out right, puts a ball on the money to Rashad Bateman, 40-something yards downfield. He just drops it, lost it in the sun, it looked like. They had a 4th and 1 early where they went for it, but they went for it out of Wildcat. And I am pro-aggression on 4th and short if I'm the Baltimore Ravens, the best rushing attack that we've seen maybe ever. But have Lamar under center, have Lamar receiving the snap so that you have the dual rushing threat with both of them. I can't understand why you would take him out of the play. So there were just some lapses. There were just some moments that I thought they really let themselves down that cost them. And I am looking at that defense, dude, because shout out to Jameis, but you shouldn't be allowing 29 points to the Cleveland Browns. And this defense just hasn't been great. They're very, very good against the run, but they haven't gotten a ton of pressure this year. They didn't get a ton of pressure in this one. Jameis had a lot of time to throw against an offensive line that has struggled and against a team that's taken more sacks than anybody. Definitely a lot of that is on Deshaun, but still not an impressive pass rush from Baltimore, and they've struggled against the pass all year. They come into today 24th in points allowed per drive, and they let the Browns do this to them. And the final breakdown on the touchdown to Tillman, that's brutal. I mean, shout out to Tillman. He played a really good game, but you get toasted on 2nd and 15 for a 38-yard touchdown. I've mostly given them the benefit of the doubt on that side of the ball because, I mean, they've just been consistently great defensively in recent years under Harbaugh, and they're still pretty darn talented. But this is not the unit that we saw last year. And I think the level that they can get to defensively is going to be huge in determining this team's ceiling, because I still think they should be a good defense, but they haven't been. They've been a below average defense, and they're not going to be a great defense like we saw last year, like we've become accustomed to. I think that we can say that now.
I'll cut them a little bit of slack. They've been underwhelming. This is the number 1 rushing defense in the NFL, and it is
Great against the
bad.
run.
They allowed 334 passing yards today. The reason I say I cut them a little slack, they're down both of their starting corners. Marlon Humphrey's out and Nate Wiggins is out. But as you mentioned, Baltimore's defense has allowed the most explosive plays in the NFL. Those are most plays over 20 yards. They have the number 28 passing defense by yards per attempt right now. And opposing QBs this year have thrown for 2,300 passing yards, 17 TDs to just 5 interceptions. And Jameis was just spreading the Ravens defense out 5 wide today and picking them apart. It is uncharacteristic, man. It's very uncharacteristic. And so I think they'll be better when their top 2 corners get back. But this is a Ravens defense that hasn't been good against the pass all year long. And I got to think they're feeling the loss of Mike McDonald. I think Zach Orr's a good DC, but he's not a great one. And they're just missing that strategy. And it's weird, man. Baltimore, it feels like in every game is just like 1 or 2 plays defensively away from really swinging it, right? We mentioned all the drop picks in this game. Any one of those that they come up with would have made the difference in this one, would have stonewalled the Browns and won them the game. And they do let this one slip through their fingers. As you mentioned, Bateman drops a wide open pass. Justin Tucker misses a field goal on a drive in this game. And another play call. You mentioned the Derrick Henry Wildcat play. That's on the first drive of this game. Stupid-ass play call. Like you said, the Browns send the house because what are you going to have Derrick Henry throw a jump pass?
He's done it before, but I wouldn't expect it.
You're giving them – if Lamar's back there, you have to respect the threat of a pass, right?
Or respect the threat of Lamar keeping it.
Yeah.
Lamar, Derrick Henry, read options this year have been unstoppable. They've destroyed teams.
Exactly. And the other dumbass play call, a third one late in this game, they put Charlie Kohler, the third-string tight end, under center, and he gets a false start penalty. As the quarterback, it backs him up to 3rd and 6, and then they don't convert. It's like, and I think Ross Tucker said this on the broadcast, but what are we doing? You've got an MVP-level quarterback and an offensive player of the year running back, and we're putting a third-string tight end under center. There's no reason to get cute, man. Put the ball in the hands of your playmakers and let them go to work. I will say, I think that I do put some of this game on the offense. I think the Ravens had moments to put this game away. Again, Bateman's drop. But when you're this bad on 3rd down, I think the offense bears some responsibility too. Again, 2 of 10 on 3rd downs. They didn't convert a 3rd down until the 3rd quarter. And Lamar point blank got outplayed by Jameis Winston today. So I think this is the greatest backfield in NFL history. It's what gives me faith and confidence in this football team to win playoff games and to potentially go win a Super Bowl this year. I think they're a top 3 offense in the NFL. I think it's really uncharacteristic how they struggled today, but the defense is worse than last year. And as you mentioned, I think it's the biggest variable on if this team can go out and win a Super Bowl this year. Is the defense going to perform when they need to? They haven't. They have not yet, man.
Yeah.
When the pressure's been applied, they've crumbled. Last thing I want to touch on with this game is just Ken Dorsey. He takes over play calling for Cleveland, and I think a lot of people are going to give him a disproportionate amount of credit for how successful the offense was today. I think that had a lot more to do with Jameis stepping in and him making plays, because there's a few plays from Dorsey in this game that had me scratching my head too, man. 3rd and 6 in the red zone early in this game. He calls a screen when Jameis had been slinging the hell out of the ball. That gets stuffed immediately. And then there's a 3rd and 1 in this game where they hand the ball off to Nick Chubb out of not out of the pistol. They line up in like an old school formation where it's not single back, but the running back is lined up in the fullback spot. And it's just like obvious. Like he's just telegraphing some of these play calls. Dorsey gets it done today, but I still don't think he's a good OC. So, yeah, good win from the Browns. I'm not out on the Ravens by any means, but they've got a big red flag, man. They've got a big one, and it's that passing defense and the big shot plays they allow.
Yeah, and obviously being without Marlon Humphrey is big for this game, right? But they've struggled all year. They've struggled a lot all year against the pass, and I don't think that Nate Wiggins is very good yet. And I really think that a lot of this is about the pass rush more than it is about the coverage. I think that they miss a Jadeveon Clowney, and shout out to Owe because he's stepped up and he's been pretty solid, but Matabike hasn't been quite as effective as a pass rusher as he was last year. That's the concern to me, and the loss of Patrick Queen, I do think really matters. Again, I still think that they're good. This team is normally very well coached. I'm talking about defensively. Obviously, they're a very good football team because the offense is crazy, but I'm just becoming a little bit more concerned about that as the year goes on. I will say, just to put things into perspective, Deshaun's averages per game over 3 seasons with the Browns, 177 passing yards per game, 1 touchdown per game, 6 yards per pass attempt. This year, he was taking 4.7 sacks per game. Jameis in his first start gives you 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8.1 yards per attempt. There's no question that he would have given you your best chance to win all season. And you lost 4 games where you allowed 21 points or fewer. Like, are you going to tell me that Jameis couldn't have been the difference of 1 possession? That you couldn't have gone 2-2 with him in those games? And then anything is on the table, right? If you're sitting here 4-4 with this defense and a more capable offense, playoffs could still be in the picture. And obviously they didn't do that. And we've talked about why. It's this whole sunken cost fallacy thing, but it's just infuriating. And what's even more shocking to me, maybe, is that they were going to start DTR over Jameis. And the DTR is the guy who we saw last week. At that point, I'm just trying to figure out, like, are they viewing DTR as like a young quarterback of the future? That doesn't make sense. He's not going to be that. You are still financially committed to Deshaun. But part of me was like, are they trying to sabotage themselves and not like upstage Deshaun and be like, whoa, we actually did have this quarterback who was better all along in Jameis? I don't know what that was last week. Thank God that they moved off of that, but it's just very clear that Jameis gives you the best chance to win games. Unfortunately, their season is too far gone now, though. And speaking of too far gone, Logan, speaking of teams that had maybe playoff aspirations before the year but are now 2-6, the New York Jets lost to the New England Patriots today. How dark is it in New York?
Oh, well, Aaron Rodgers told us all about how dark it was in the presser.
He did.
He sounded like Batman. I've been in the darkness. You got to make peace with the darkness. More importantly, after he said all that nonsense with his crack eyes, I swear, man. Look, man, I know Rodgers isn't like, he could be on a substance during the game. I've heard he has played, but
Perk Rodgers. I wish that he was off the perks right now,
dude,
bro. He'd be way more deadly.
Dude, he comes out in the he's got crazy.
Like Bobby Portis.
He's got okay, yeah. He's got crazy eyes, man. It's scary. He's got a wily look in his eye every time I see him, man. After he got through his little darkness point, he made a good one. He said the offense has to score 30. That has to be our goal. And yeah, The offense has to be a lot better. Carson, right now, they've got the number 23 passing offense in terms of yards per attempt. They got the number 29 rushing offense in terms of yards per attempt. And the New York Football Jets are the only team, I repeat, the only team in the NFL this year without a 25-point game this season. They have yet to score more than 24 points this year. And if you had asked me what team it would be through week 8, the Jets would have probably been one of the last teams I had guessed. Just with Rodgers, like, oh, yeah, they're going to do that. They've not. This snowball that we saw from the Jets has quickly turned into an avalanche, man. It's hilarious, right? They fire Robert Saleh before their biggest, most important game of the season against a division rival. They lose. They trade for Devontae Adams. That's their next biggest move. They lose the most important game against the season versus a fellow conference rival, right? The Steelers jockeying for wild card position. All right, well, they stood pat. Now they lose the most important game of their season versus a division cellar dweller.
Hold on. I don't know that we can say this was the most important game. It's only the most important because they lost it, and now the season's over. This is just saying. Like a W on paper you just got to take care of.
Well, no, their most important game, it has just now been pushed.
Is it always next week?
It's always next. Yeah, because at some point you got to stop.
That's a good mentality to have.
It's at some point you got to stop the skid, right? Like at some point, they are now 0-3 in the Jeff Ulbrich era. I know Robert Saleh is somewhere. He's in Green Bay, probably smiling, knowing that this is happening. And the next domino to fall will be Greg Zuerlein. They asked Ulbrich after the game, do you regret sticking with Greg Zuerlein? And I credit for Ulbrich for not airing him out. He was like, I do not. He's been the worst kicker in football. He's 9 of 15 on field goals this year. That's 60%. That'd be good if you were playing basketball, right? If you were
very efficient. Zubac's numbers.
Yeah, you'd be the greatest baseball player of all time. Unfortunately, this is kicking field goals, and that is particularly bad. He also missed an extra point, like missed the game winner against Denver, missed 2 field goals in a 3-point loss versus Buffalo, and he misses a 44-yard one in this one. You got to be done with him. The Jets have the same record as the Jags and Browns right now. Like, just to put into, perspective where the Jets are right now, just real nice stuff. So Zuerlein will be the black sheep, the guy that gets blamed for this loss. The Jets' problems permeate farther than just Greg Zuerlein. And I agree with you, man. He's going to be the martyr for this game, but the Jets are done. I think this season's cooked. Like, I look at the upcoming schedule, right? There's no gimmies the rest of the way. Like, I don't think that exists for the Jets. I don't think a gimme is a thing for New York.
No.
And this team is reeling. You've got to stop the skid. They've got Houston next. Then they've got Arizona, Indianapolis, Seattle. They've got Miami twice. They've got Jacksonville, the Rams, Buffalo. Like, none of these games are just, again, teams are going to roll over. Even Jacksonville. I could see them losing to Jacksonville. And I don't know if I would favor them. I don't know if I'd pick them to win any of these games individually. I think the Jets are done, man. And it sucks because now this is year 2 of Rodgers. You've wasted another year. He's only getting older. This offense is very, very far away still. Yeah, I think the season's done. Even though they may be talented enough, I think somebody else is going to get in the wild card. I just couldn't trust them to turn things around, man. I think they're cooked.
The New York Jets are a humiliation, and they are a disgrace as an organization. And I am very happy for Robert Saleh that he is exonerated from any guilt with this entire dumpster fire, which I think it was very apparent he was never responsible for, and he never should have been fired. And that was just the ultimate scapegoaty move. The bar is so low to be in the AFC wildcard race this year. It's so low. And that is the only reason that I've continued to talk about this team's potential to make a wild card push. After they made the Devontae trade, I said, look, they're 2-4. I don't think they're good. I still think that they can make it because the schedule's not too tough and the competition sucks. And they have managed to fall out of that in the 2 weeks since they made the Devontae trade. Like, their season is over. They are not good. That is very clear. And they've dug themselves far too deep of a hole now. The Zuerlein thing is crazy to me. It speaks to an unseriousness as a franchise. What did we see with Braden Arvison earlier this year, Logan? The Green Bay Packers, a good team with playoff aspirations, they cut him after 6 weeks. That's a rookie, right? Rookies struggle. Rookies can get better. Greg Zuerlein is old. He's a finished product, and he sucks. He is horrible. He cost you 4 points again today. And it's not just that. He missed a potential game winner versus Denver. He missed 2 field goals versus Buffalo. Like, all of those games could have potentially been won, or in some cases would have been won if he just made kicks. So you're right. He's obviously not the only thing that is wrong here. There's a lot that's wrong, but it does boggle my mind that you can get that position so wrong. I do say this as a Bills fan who thinks Tyler Bass sucks and they need to get off of him, and they haven't, but he is better than Greg Zuerlein. He's not 9 of 15 on the year. And I will say this, today's football result is not on Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. I thought Aaron Rodgers played a good football game. But what I did not like from him, and this is a little thing, and you tell me if you think I'm overreacting, Logan, but on the final play, when the Jets were trying to get up quickly to the line of scrimmage to get one final spike off and get one final playoff, hopefully, Rodgers just walked off. He was just walking away from all of his teammates. Admittedly, they were not going to be able to get the playoff in any world, right? And Aaron Rodgers knows that. But to me, it's just kind of a symbolic thing when everybody else is still engaged. Everybody else is still trying to get up to the line quickly, right? He is the one guy on this team, the quarterback, the 40-year-old who has won a Super Bowl, who has 4 MVPs, who should in every way be the guy who everybody in this locker room is aspiring to, who just concedes defeat. And again, it's not a practical thing. I just think it's a bad look. And I don't think that he's taken accountability with this team all season. And it feels to me like he's just emotionally distancing himself from the team further and further, and is probably going to go on some spiel about nihilism and how none of this means anything after his next ayahuasca adventure. But even the comment that you referred to about how the offense has to score 30, I don't know. I didn't see that within context, but I don't want to twist his words because, again, I would have to watch the clip, but the offense doesn't need to score 30. The offense hasn't needed to score 30. That makes it sound like, oh, the defense is letting up 28. We have to score 30. No, this is one game in which the defense didn't play well. You're scoring 18 points per game, though. The offense has to score 24. It's very reasonable. You don't have to win shootouts. You haven't been in shootouts. You've been a bad offense.
Yeah, he said something along the lines of our goal needs to be to score 30 points regardless of whatever the other two sides of the ball are doing. And to me, that was the most accountability Rodgers had taken all season. I completely agree with you. I think Rodgers is a bad leader, and he's got this Brady thing about him, man, where it's like spoiled. They're sore losers. And it's hard, man. I get it. I don't like losing, but you just accept it and you move on, man. It's one game and you just eat it, right? Brady, anytime he would lose, wouldn't go up and he wouldn't shake the opposing quarterback's hand because he's a dick. And you know what? I grew with that. And I just realized, all right, but Brady at least would internalize that pain and it would fuel him to come back the next week. And that was more because it really did mean something to Tom. And I'm not saying it doesn't mean something to Aaron, but it's that sore loser aspect where it's spoiled grapes. Oh, woe is me. Poor me.
Mm-hmm.
We can't figure it out. It's not of a good leader, man. If it was, Rodgers would have came out and said, this one's on me. We didn't have to get our job done. We haven't. Him walking off, but it doesn't really make a difference to me. But we've seen that multiple times this year where the offense will be huddled up and it'll be the offense all on one side of the sideline and Rodgers is ostracized all alone on an island by himself over here like you said, like he's better than everybody else on this team. Oh, I already got my Super Bowl. I already got all my MVPs. I'm big and bad. I'm Aaron Rodgers. Y'all are peasants to me. That's how it comes off. It comes off as he's king of the castle and you guys are just plebeians. I don't like it. I don't like that out of my quarterback. I like a guy like
Josh Allen.
I like Brock.
Josh Allen would be a good example.
Josh is the GOAT. Josh is the
Just
perfect quarterback. If you were making a quarterback in a lab, it would be Josh Allen. But
I like this.
Even like Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy has tremendous humility, man. I love the way Brock conducts himself and handles himself, his composure. And when he loses them a game, man, he doesn't hang his head. Brock will have a bad game, but he comes back. He takes accountability. And Rodgers, to me, Carson, has always kind of been like this. But as he's gotten older, it's gotten worse. And it just feels, like you said, man, like he thinks he's bigger than the team. And I don't like that, man. I think Rodgers is a bad leader. And I don't know if that makes a difference in how this team would have performed this season. But it is something that goes into a football team. Rodgers is supposed to be the leader. And you heard him last week. Devontae Adams, new guy in town, gave him the best speech they had said all year long. What does that say about your own football team? That the new guy is giving speeches. It's just, the Jets are dysfunctional, and Aaron Rodgers is the king of the world's most dysfunctional football team, man. It's not a good look. And
no,
unfortunately, man, it's just the reality of who Aaron Rodgers is as a human.
And he's still a very solid starting quarterback. I want to be clear about this. And I think that in terms of the Jets' shortcomings, he's going to get disproportionate blame. Did he live up to maybe the image you had in your head of a superstar quarterback coming in and saving you? No. I thought he could be like a back end of the top 10, fringe top 10 guy. He hasn't been that. So he has been underwhelming, but the problems with this offense to me are still inability to run the ball, very bad offensive line play. He has two great receivers out there now. And honestly, they had a solid offensive game. I thought that especially Garrett Wilson was really, really good in this game. This is a weird one where it is on the defense. You let up 25 to the New England Patriots, but they just find a way to lose these games in mind-blowing fashion. And it just feels like cosmic mockery, kind of, that they could fail this spectacularly, that a franchise that has unfortunately been tormented so much and has been such a laughingstock for so long, when they do put together the team that has the expectation to be the best, that last year goes how it went, and then this year goes how it's gone, they're in a brutal spot. They have no choice but to just keep trying, right? Keep trying to win now. And if they can overhaul in the trenches, that's the only path. But they've tried to do that over the last two off seasons, and it hasn't made a difference. Not enough of a difference.
Hey, it hasn't. Last thing I wanted to add, man, it's just ironic to me, Carson, how Brett Favre's lone season with the Jets and how this one mirror each other, and not in the sense of how they started, but just how they went overall. Like that team, I want to say the 08 Jets started 9-3. They lost out. They needed to win one game to get into the playoffs, and they end the season 9-7. It's one of the greatest individual single season collapses ever. And it's just funny to me, man. The Jets are cursed. Joe Namath sold his soul and sold the soul of the Jets franchise to win Super Bowl III. Hey, you know what? It might be the most important football game ever played because it gave credence to the AFL. It led to the NFL-AFL merger. It was a vitally important moment in football history.
1968.
But damn, man. Yeah.
You'll always have that. You'll always have 1968, Jets fans. All right. Let's talk Eagles-Bengals, Logan. This was an interesting one on the docket for today. Convincing win for Philly. They end up winning by 20. What did you take away from this one?
Yeah, the Bengals are a freaking joke. That's my big take about this. I don't really care about the Eagles putting up points in this game, if I'm being honest with you. I know what the Eagles are, and the Eagles can beat as many bad football teams as they want. They need to beat a good one for me to be moved. You know, when Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are healthy and Jalen Hurts has those guys to throw to and Saquon's available, I don't really worry about this team. I view the Niners and the Eagles in a very similar light. And I like the Niners more because I think they're not a dysfunctional organization, right? When I look at I mentioned their foundation earlier, right? It's the stability I get with Kyle Shanahan as my head coach. It's the stability that we've gotten from this defense over the past 5 years that instills confidence in me with the Niners week to week, right? Where they may be struggling this season, but I always come back and I'll fight the battle for the Niners because I believe in their foundational pieces. And honestly, I like Brock more than I like Jalen Hurts. That may be a hot take because of Hurts' physical abilities, but I think I trust Brock more. I don't worry about the Eagles when they're fully healthy, right? When the Niners have their skill position guys, I'm very confident in them. When Hurts has Smith and AJ and Saquon Barkley, I'm confident in them. I think they can do well, and they do in this one. But the Bengals are a bad team. The Bengals have been a bad team. And ironically, much like the Jets, somehow the Bengals aren't completely out of the AFC playoff picture right now. Like somehow in a weird, bizarre world, I guess I could see the Bengals or the Jets rattling off some wins and creeping back into that conversation. But they're not good football teams. At the end of the day, they're not. And so
No.
that's why I'm not moved about the Eagles. I still think Sirianni is a bad coach. I think Hurts had a really good game against a really bad football team. I don't trust him to protect the football. The Bengals get shut down offensively a little bit by the defense, but the running game has sucked, right? So
Yeah.
I'm just not moved by this game for Philadelphia. I think the Bengals are a bad team. I think they beat up on a bad team, and the Bengals just stink. The Eagles are a good team. They're just I didn't see anything in this one that would really. I need to see sustained good performances out of Hurts. I need to see this sustained over a few weeks, even if the
Yeah.
star guys are healthy or not. I need to see him protect the football. And then the other component of this is I need to see it sustained from the defense too. I still don't think this defense is good. They beat a bad team today. I wasn't really moved by this one for Philadelphia.
I'll give them a little bit more credit because I think that this was clearly the most convincing game that they've played against a decent football team, and it comes on the heels of their most dominant win of the year, point blank, against the Giants. That's just good to see from Philly because this is a team that is immensely talented, and like we both held out some faith in them because of that, but it had just been underwhelming performance after underwhelming performance. I mean, so many slow starts. That's been the story of the year, right? They haven't scored in the first quarter. And it was just nice to see them handle a team. And no, I don't think the Bengals are good, but like I also wasn't sure that Philly was going to just handle them in this game. I thought that this could have been more competitive, more dangerous for them. And the first half was quite competitive, but there are definitely positive takeaways. This was Hurts' best game of the year. He was super efficient. He was very effective with his legs. He made a hell of a throw on the touchdown to Devontae Smith. Saquon just continues to kill it, but your star wide receiver duo came through. Like all the components, all the boxes you want to be checking offensively were checked. Your defense stopped the run. Not hard to do against the Bengals, but they did it nonetheless. And they've now put together back-to-back pretty good performances. Giants offense obviously isn't good, but like holding the Bengals to 280 yards of offense, that's pretty good. Holding them to 17 points, that's pretty good. I thought it was a nice all-around performance. On the flip side for Cincinnati, can't run the ball. Defense sucks. And if T. Higgins is out, their passing attack just isn't the same. So I don't know how many times we have to see this same story. This is just who the Bengals are. They've beaten 3 teams this year with 5 combined wins, the Giants, the Panthers, and the Browns with Deshaun Watson. They're just not good. And yeah, they're not out of the AFC playoff picture, but I still would not expect them to make it, even with a light schedule, because this defense is so bad and this run game is bad. Shout out Joe Burrow. Shout out Jamar Chase. They're doing their best out there. It's not enough. Any other thoughts on this game?
No.
All right. Let's talk about the second edition of what was the game of the year first time around, Logan. Bucks Falcons. It's a fun one this time around as well for top status in the NFC South. It's an Atlanta win. What did you take away from this?
Yeah, Atlanta's going to take control of the NFC South with this one. They're 5-3. They've now won both head-to-head matchups against Tampa Bay. When you look at the other 2 teams in this division, New Orleans and Carolina, they have no chance at winning it. I think the Saints are just bad at this point.
Yeah.
I think they're a team that can win games with Derek Carr. They're severely handicapped with Spencer Rattler, but this defense is also really regressed over the past couple of weeks. So I think they're out of the picture. So this was a vital, vital game for Tampa Bay. For Atlanta, Kirk's got it, man. Kirk has got it. He has been everything that he has been touted up to be, and I loved it because watching people overreact after week 1 was so funny to me. Everybody came out of the woodworks after they lost to the Steelers and wanted to draw these big conclusions about Kirk to Atlanta. It's his first game after tearing an Achilles. He's clearly not at 100%, not comfortable planning. Kirk throws a pretty freaking ball, man. Kirk throws a beautiful football, and it's just old school, man, where Kirk is not – he's Joe Flacco. He's like – Kirk's a turret at this point, man. He's a jugs machine. He is – he's just going to stand and deliver, right? Like he's not – it's old man football. He's not getting mobile. He's not buying time in the pocket. He is just standing in there, and he's finding open guys. And Kirk has carved up Tampa Bay. If Tampa Bay does get into the playoffs, they damn sure do not want to run into Atlanta because I think Atlanta's going to carve them up. In this game, Kirk goes for 292 yards and 4 TDs. On the season, Carson, Kirk had 101 total yards and 8 TDs against Tampa Bay.
801.
801 total yards.
You said 101.
Oh, my
which would
fault.
be a bit underwhelming.
That would be underwhelming. He had 801 total yards across 2 games against Tampa Bay. I really believe in this offense. It seems like he has unlocked something with Kyle Pitts. There's talent everywhere. The sleeper guy here who's been performing, Darnell Mooney. It's like this wide receiver core is deep. There's talent everywhere. This offensive line is good. And the defense isn't great, but they're good enough where I could see Atlanta being competitive in a playoff game. I could see Atlanta winning a playoff game. I don't know if I'd pick it because I still don't love this defense, but this offense is explosive. I believe very much in Kirk Cousins at this point in his career, and he's got a ton of talent to work with here. So I'm really impressed with Atlanta. And then Tampa Bay's side, I still think Tampa Bay has got a really big burden on Baker Mayfield. I don't think the secondary is great. I think the secondary really struggles against high-octane passing attacks, but Baker's just got a lot on his shoulders. 341 total yards. He's got 3 TDs in this one. He's also got 3 turnovers. Baker just can't be that reckless with the ball. It does make a difference in this one, and we've seen that. Baker throws the football 50 times in this game, and it's just a reality. It's like, look, man, I really trust Baker as a quarterback, but you're asking Baker to throw the ball 50 times for you. Of course he's going to turn the ball over 3 times. It's Baker, right? It's like asking Jared Goff to throw you the ball 50 times. It's like asking
asking Costco guys to eat the chicken bait and the chocolate double chunk chocolate cookie. They're Costco guys. That's what they do. He's Baker. That's what he does.
Exactly.
I see where you're going with this.
It's like Sam Darnold. You know what I mean? It's like those guys. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way because I think some people will take that in that way. What I mean by that is they are guys who can win you football games, but you want to limit as much as they have to do in any individual game. Dak, I would put in this tier, right? With how he's been playing. Jalen Hurts to an extent, right? They're guys that can win you football games, certainly because they're that talented, but you want to minimize how much they have to do. And I just think the Buccaneers consistently on a game-to-game basis just ask Baker to over-deliver a little bit too much, and it's a little bit much to ask from him. I still think the Bucs are good. I still think the Bucs are going to have a chance to be in the wild card. I don't know if I'd pick it, though. These are 2 very important and meaningful losses against Atlanta, man. They needed to split this season series. It's really unfortunate because they've likely cost themselves with the division with both of these losses.
Baker is so damn impressive until he throws 2 picks. And unfortunately, that's just been the case in recent weeks, right? There's been a lot of turning the ball over. I personally don't think that the Bucs are a playoff team. I think the NFC is good, and I think that it's really about their defense. I mean, they've run the ball better this year. Baker has been really, really good. I say that until he throws 2 picks thing. Like, that's not to diminish him. He's still been really good. It's just you're like, oh my God, this dude's playing like an MVP candidate. And then he tries to fit a ball in where it just can't possibly go and forces a couple throws. That's just kind of inevitable, but I'm still super impressed here, dude. I mean, this without Godwin and without Mike Evans, it's the Kate Otten show, and he is just slinging it. He is slinging the ball around the field. He's got 2,200 yards and 21 touchdowns, Logan. He also has 9 interceptions on the year, but the good has way outweighed the bad. And I just don't think you could really be that much more encouraged about Baker if you're a Bucs fan when you zoom out on this year. Like, that contract is a steal, dude. He's played like a fringe top 10 quarterback this year, and he's getting paid less than some wide receivers. He's just in a tough spot here. I don't put this game on Baker. Yes, he's going to give some to the other guys, but he's going to do a lot more good in total for your offense. And I think we've seen him show that he can carry an offense more than some of the dudes who you were naming. Like, that's what he's been doing this year. It's just the Bucs aren't the most complete team, and their defense has been concerning to me. They've struggled, especially in recent weeks. But I do really like Atlanta. I really like Atlanta. I think that they are good. Kirk is just a baller. He's been one of the best pocket passers in football this year. He's been great against the blitz. So Tampa Bay doesn't bring nearly as many blitzes as they usually would in this one, and he picked them apart anyways. And I think that this Atlanta offense has just really found a rhythm. They were slow to start the season, right? They were in these sort of grinded out games in the high teens. But last 5 weeks, they're averaging 29 points per game. I think that their skill position guys are coming out and starting to produce at the level that we expect with their talents. Bijan is making elite plays out there. Kyle Pitts is really doing his thing. He had an awesome game. I think that the discourse with him went prematurely this year to he's a bust. People have really been eager to write off Kyle Pitts. And I think with the quarterback play that he's had in recent years and just with the offensive approach, that hasn't made sense. I think that he is a really, really gifted receiving tight end still. And the defense, yeah, it's not perfect, but I do want to shout out AJ Terrell and Jesse Bates because those guys are monsters. They both make huge plays. Nobody is better at just punching out the football right now than Jesse Bates. I guess TJ Watt, Logan. I'll give TJ Watt a mention. But if we're talking DBs after the catch, ball carriers, running backs, like he's just a monster at that. So to me, this is not your typical NFC South mid-off race to 9 wins. Let's see who gets in. Like, I think the Falcons are very legit, and I like that they brought in Kirk. I do. I think it makes them a much more legitimate playoff team right now. I would not have taken Penix. We talked about that. I would have traded back a little bit, take a defensive player. You think about the impact Jared Verse could have had for this team. That would have been real because they don't get pressure. That's the problem with this team. That's what's going to hold them back defensively. They have 6 sacks this season. That is last. They are 28th in pressure rate. That's going to keep them from contending. You have to be able to get after the quarterback more effectively than that. But I think they're like a fringe top 10 team in the NFL. And I do think depending on matchup, they could win a playoff game. And I've been impressed. I've gotten higher on them as the weeks have gone by. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. Then on the other side, we'll talk about these other games after we hear from DraftKings. The NBA is finally back. A new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Who's draining threes from beyond the arc? Who's crashing the boards and grabbing rebounds? Get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you make at DraftKings, the home of NBA player props.
Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. For first-timers, new DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly.
Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Tua Tagovailoa made his return to the field today, Logan, and the Dolphins were ahead for most of their game against the Cardinals. They end up losing on a field goal in the final moments. What did you take away from his return on the Miami side?
Yeah, I mean, this Miami offense was definitely missing something without Tua, and I'll give him his props with that. Like, Tua makes this offense great, and I don't think Tua is a great quarterback, but he does make this offense great. I'll never consider Tua, I know he led the league in passing yards. I know how efficient he was. I've heard all the numbers. Tua is never going to be one of the elite quarterbacks of the game to me. I think that's a fundamental misstep. It's like when people tried to elevate Brock Purdy to being that, but he can't elevate an offense, and you've clearly seen that with and without Tua. Without Tua this year, they averaged 10 points per game. They were the worst offense in the NFL. On his career, they averaged 19 points per game without Tua, 25 with him. This season with Tua, they've had 19 points per game instead of 10, right? So this season, he's making a 9-point per game difference. On his career, there's a touchdown difference. Those are big numbers. And then this season, yardage-wise, they averaged 275 yards of offense without Tua. They averaged 376 with Tua. So he makes a massive, massive difference, right? Just getting the ball out quickly to Tyreek Hill, to Waddle, to these guys, even running the ball. He changes the way they run. He changes everything. He's just on time. He's accurate. He knows what to do with the football. They were clearly missing something. So I think Tua can get elevated into other QB conversations where he doesn't belong. But he's clearly an elevator, and he clearly makes this offense better and makes them great at what they do. Kyler was just better today. He just got outplayed by Kyler Murray. I don't know how to dress it up. And speaking of guys, we were talking about
speaking of guys, yeah.
Well, we were talking about guys getting underrated. We were talking about Kyle Pitts, right? People writing him off as a bust. I think a lot of people wrote Kyler Murray off.
Yeah.
He likes playing the game too much. He likes, running Call of Duty, and he's not a real football player, right? I like my football players to eat nails with their cereal, and they can't look at video games. Kyler's a beast, man. Kyler Carson to me is like a top 5 watch, I think, at QB.
I agree. Yeah.
There's a lot of fun guys to watch, but the play extension, man, the way he gets out and just makes stuff happen. The Michael Wilson touchdown in the end zone. He's got a couple of plays to Marvin Harrison Jr. where he finds guys. He's a special, special talent at the QB position, man. And I don't know if he's top 10 because there's like 12 top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL nowadays, but Kyler's very, very close. And he just got outdueled today, man. I do think Kyler's better than Tua. I'll definitely say that. That's totally unquestionable to me, but he's really shown it. And it may not be every game where Kyler will give you a classic, but there are games that he just completely swings on his own. And I thought this was one of them, man. He's one of the most special talents at the QB position in the NFL today. And I thought that was on full display today. What a crazy end to a lot of these first window games.
Insane.
This was one of them. And Kyler made it happen, man.
The Cardinals are really fun. And I like the Cardinals. They're erratic, but that offense is dangerous when they're going, and specifically when Kyler is cooking. And he made some plays in this one. And I really thought it was a great game for Marvin Harrison Jr. too, who made a couple of really nice catches. I thought that his ball tracking, I thought his body control was really outstanding. And Trey McBride, who is one of the best receiving tight ends in football, he had a phenomenal game as well. And Kyler made some incredible throws. Touchdown throw to Marvin Harrison Jr., the throw to him on the drive before that, facing a free rusher, nails, 3rd and 4 to ice the game. Kyler made a hell of a play with his legs. Like, there's just a really, really dangerous dual threat element with him that when he is accurate downfield, it's really, really effective. He's a really good one-man offensive engine. And I do think Arizona's clearly in the mix in the NFC West, right? They're sitting at 4-4. They're tied with the Seahawks and the Niners in terms of record. Problem is, I don't trust their defense. So they are still my 4th team in the division, but I think their offense can duel with anyone, and they're a danger to upset anybody on their best day. And that's just big progress from where they were at last year, right? When it was all about, oh my God, their only hope is to get Caleb Williams and trade Kyler because they're so clearly going to be the worst team in football. Kyler saves them from that fate. The skill position talent they've put around him does as well. I like James Conner. They're a very, very solid football team. And for Miami, it's good to have Tua back out there. I do think it's important when you give all of those on-off numbers, the difference between when he plays versus the alternatives at quarterback. Miami has done a horrible, horrible job with their backup quarterback situation because we have seen Skylar Thompson, Tyler Huntley, and Tim Boyle take the field this year for them. It's bad. And I think if they had a better backup quarterback, like we've seen some of these other teams around the league, if they had even a Tyrod Taylor, they could have won an extra game when Tua was out, and they could have kept their season alive potentially. They didn't, but the timing and accuracy you get from Tua makes a huge difference versus those guys. Ultimately, though, I think you have the same pitfalls with Miami. In a gotta-have-it spot offensively, gotta keep a drive alive. They go super conservative, can't even complete a screen on 3rd down. Then you got to get a stop, and your defense just can't get off the field. And Miami's defense really has never been very good in the time that Tua has been at quarterback, even as they have had a dynamic offense last year, really dynamic offense, but the defense just never delivered. And in big spots, the offense didn't deliver against good competition. So I do think they're still in a really rough spot because of how much they've committed to Tua and the limitations that he does have and how that limits the roster they can build around him. Last year was a really good season for Miami, even though the playoffs were bad and they fumbled the division at the end, but that was the best year they've had in a long time. But now you're sitting here, you're 2-5, you're 1-2 in Tua plays, your season's over, and you have committed to this group. I would not be feeling good about that because I don't think that at full strength they can compete with the legit playoff teams nonetheless. And Logan, the standard in the AFC is the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs roll in and pick up a win over the Las Vegas Raiders. What'd you take away from this?
All right, we've been saying this for weeks, but the Chiefs' defense is the backbone of this team. It's not Patrick Mahomes. For my money, it's the best defense in the NFL. They hold Vegas to 33 rushing yards on 21 carries. Currently, they rank as the number 5 scoring defense, the number 2 rushing defense in terms of yards per attempt. They're tied 7th in terms of passing defense in yards per attempt. They're number 4 in pressure rate. And this is a top 10 red zone and 3rd down defense. The rushing defense is phenomenal. It seems like every big running play that this team has faced, they shut down. Karlaftis, Noddy, Chris Jones. There's so many good players up front. The linebackers are great. Chanel, Bolton, they're loaded, man. This team's loaded. And the one play that really sticks out to me about this game and what reinforces that is Mahomes' interception at the line of scrimmage. Interception off a deflection at the line of scrimmage. Kansas City's up 17-13. This is like the game-swinging drive here from the Raiders. Yeah. I believe the Raiders are still the last team to beat Kansas City as well, which is kind of crazy to say.
My pal Mikey won't let me hear the end of it. Raiders, man. It was Christmas of last year.
Living on old glories, man. Living on old glories.
Hey, 2023 glories.
What have you
been bad for the Raiders?
What have you done for me recently, Vegas?
He's not going back to the Plunkett days or the Kenny Stabler days.
True. And then Kansas City just holds a goal line stand, just completely stops the Raiders. Now, one on that, I think it was a dumb decision by Antonio Pierce to not kick the field goal. But again, I'm gonna take the points guy.
Come on, man. You start on their 3. A field goal, you're still down. You have to be aggressive there.
You're down 1 point. Here's what I say. 99% of the time, and this is included in it, I understand being aggressive in the analytics and taking the lead and swinging the game like that. Yeah, but that was an off-the-script turnover. When anytime, in my opinion, if I was a football coach, as football theory, anytime I get a possession that is not accounted for, and what I mean by that is a turnover or I force a turnover on downs, right? We get the ball back and we hold you. I would rather get points. Just like looking at those 2 possessions, you came away with 0. I came away with 3.
I couldn't disagree more, Logan.
But
if you take
look at what happened.
Expecting your team to outplay the Chiefs the rest of the way. Not look at what happened. You wouldn't have won the game if they took the points.
You're not.
They're not as good. If you are gift wrapped an opportunity,
hear me out.
For the underdog, you have to be aggressive because you're not as good.
I understand that. I understand being aggressive in that situation. Here's my alternative. You get points out of that drive, so your interception on Mahomes doesn't mean jack, right? You get something out of the interception. But also, if the Chiefs go and score a touchdown, you're still trailing 8. You know what I mean? Like, even if they do march down on you and score a touchdown.
Dude.
I've watched Mike Tomlin coach football teams for 20 years now. It's bred in me. I'm going to take the points guy.
But the Steelers are at least going to have that edge defensively. The Raiders are not better than the Chiefs on either side of the football. If you settle on the 3 and say, okay, we're just going to take the points here and still be down.
That's take the points guy right there.
Logan. That would have been cowardly. If they had done that, it would have jeered and booed them. You
Pierce
have to
did
understand.
It earlier this year, didn't he? When it was like that, and that's what there's 2 minutes left in a game, and he kicks a field goal trying to get a. What didn't that happen earlier this year?
Oh, he had a terrible cowardly punt earlier this year. Terrible.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what it was.
But I think that's a no-brainer. You have to go for the touchdown there. Give yourself a lead against the Chiefs. What are the odds you're going to drive down the field more often in the remainder of the game than they are? Slim. They're better than you.
What ended up happening was they didn't end up scoring. The Chiefs marched down, and instead they're trailing by.
But that wouldn't have made a difference. They went down 27-13. They would have been down 27-16. Yippee.
But not immediately. I mean, immediately they would have been down. They would have been down
17-16.
They would have been 24-16 if they had ended up kicking the field goal on the ensuing drive. Look, the Raiders weren't going to win this football game anyway. I'm just saying. I'm gonna take the points guy, man. Sue me. I'm gonna take the points guy. When my defense forces. When I get an extra possession, an unaccounted 1-4, I'm always for kicking the ball, man. I'm always for kicking the ball. You weren't expecting.
I couldn't disagree more.
You weren't expecting to get the ball there in the red zone. They gave you 3 points, and you ended up getting 0. So I don't know, man.
What bearing does the fact that you weren't expecting it have, though? It's a possession all the same.
It's my football theory is you're getting a free possession that you weren't expecting. At least get points out of it.
But it's not free. A field goal is a field goal. A touchdown is a touchdown. They get the ball right back.
It's a free 3 points. But exactly, I'm saying the cost is if you get the turnover on downs, you get 0 points. So
all right, we're running in circles here. I think the risk reward so clearly.
I know, and you're
when you're the underdog and you have an opportunity to take a lead as
I
opposed
get
to
it, man.
still being down. You're not tying the game. You're still down.
Your
You still need to score.
Your Cow Bears never kick field goals. You guys go for TDs every single time. I get it, man. I
My
get it.
Cow Bears, the real Cow Bears, do kick field goals, and guess what? They have the worst kicking situation in the country, and it's cost them 3 of their games. So what does that say? But yeah, the Chiefs are crazy clutch, man. It's unbelievable. Both sides of the ball. I mean, we can bicker about what the Raiders should have done, but what an unbelievable goal line stand. They shut down the run every damn week. And offensively, they're 12 of 16 on third down. And now they're over 50% on third this year. They're 5 of 6 on fourth this year. They're just professional winners, man. There's no other way to put it, right? It's not always pretty. Often over the last 2 years, it hasn't been pretty. They are professional winners. And this is the best Kelsey game that we've seen. That's encouraging. What did you think about D-Hop's debut? Not a big debut for him statistically, but any thoughts on how that impacts them going forward too? Because we haven't formally reacted to that move.
I forgot that we hadn't done a pod on that. Yeah, I mean, it moves me. They needed it, especially, right? Ravaged by injury, down Rashee Rice, down Sky Moore, down Juju. Everybody's banked. I'm missing somebody. There's another guy that's hurt. Obviously, Hollywood Brown, right? Never even debuted for them. So it makes a meaningful difference for me just in terms of depth. Like Mahomes clearly trusts Kelsey. He clearly trusts Noah Gray, right? He's been getting the ball more often. You just need guys that you trust. And D-Hop changes the geometry of what defenses can do, right? You can't just allocate 3 guys to Kelsey or 2 guys to Kelsey now. You know, I think it's about just keeping that balance. If you didn't have an actual wide receiver that threatened the defense, if you were trotting Sky Moore out there, if you were trotting up whoever you could get out of free agency, I don't think teams would be scared of him. But I think Hopkins will build some rapport with Mahomes. And my biggest thing is Mahomes is the best quarterback that D-Hop's ever played with. And D-Hop has played with a good quarterback in Kyler Murray, but Mahomes is clearly like the best of the best. And as successful as D-Hop has been with bad quarterbacks, even in his old age, I think he's going to figure it out with Mahomes. And D-Hop, to me, still has one of the best pairs of hands in football, right? It's like Larry Fitzgerald getting old. You can take his athleticism, you can take his, physical attributes, and you can take all that. You can't take his hands away from him, and that's the dynamic that I think D-Hop brings. I'm anticipating him being way more impactful as the season goes along.
Totally agreed. I mean, we see this process with all these recently traded receivers, right? Obviously, it takes some time to get them really integrated into the offense. Not a big impact in this game, and he has struggled this year. I don't think that DeAndre Hopkins is a number 1 receiver in the NFL at all. I think he's like a solid number 2, but he's wide receiver 1 by default here, and he's still your number 2 target after Kelsey, but that's meaningful here. I mean, the receiving core is the biggest concern that we've had about this team since the Rashee Rice injury. And if you slot everybody's responsibilities down a bit and you add just like a legitimately good NFL receiver, that's big for this room. There's very few dudes like that in this room. So that's good. And this was a really good Kelsey game. And this is kind of what the Chiefs do. They don't blow teams out anymore. They don't blow even the Raiders of the world's out. That's just not what they do. They don't need to. They win. They take care of business. The Green Bay Packers took care of business as well, Logan. They improved to 6-2, and they did that even in spite of the injury to their darling boy Jordan Love, who we hope is okay. They beat the Jags all the same with Malik Willis finishing this game at quarterback. What'd you take away from this?
Yeah, the Packers are really solid, man. I was a little bit disappointed with the defense in terms of how Jacksonville was able to move the ball, but this is a big play defense, man. They come up. I think they've got 19 turnovers forced this year, which, I always don't like. I prefer teams like the Chiefs more that get stops instead of turnovers. I think it's just more of a reliable formula, right? Turnovers are a little bit more random. But the Packers have just shown they have a knack for it. Xavier McKinney comes away with his 6th interception this year. He's been such a big add, such a big playmaker for them. Trevor Lawrence fumbles another ball at the 5-yard line. That's another part of this game is that the Jags just can't overcome their own self-inflicted wounds. It was a story of a lot of teams in this game. And I thought Trevor Lawrence had a good game. I mean, puts him in position to win with the game-tying TD to Evan Ingram, or at least force OT, not win.
Right.
But Beautifully placed ball in between 3 Packers defensive backs. But again, turnover, interception, fumble lost ends up coming back to bite them. Brandon McManus, as you mentioned earlier, Narvison wasn't cutting it, has back-to-back weeks of game-winning field goals. And I got to commend Malik Willis, man. 51-yard pass to Reed to set up this game-winning field goal. Just came in, was cool, calm, collected, and does enough to get the job done. The Packers are solid, man, and I agree with you. Earlier, I think you said that you would take them over the Niners right now. I'm there because when they're healthy, and Jordan Love's health is very important to this team. They need him to be healthy. They need him to be available to win big football games. Shout out Malik Willis and what he's been able to do in spots. And again, I think they could win games with Malik individually just because of how good Josh Jacobs has been this year too. He's been awesome for this offense. Jordan Love just hits on so many big shot plays, man. It's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
He just, every week, Jordan Love is airing that thing out 20 and 30-yard chunk plays all game long. Yeah. Huge nuts, bro.
Seriously.
Packers find a way to get it done. They're really solid, man. The Packers are among the – that's crazy, dude. All 3 of the NFC North teams may be atop my NFC right now. I think they are. I think it's Lions, Vikings, Packers in that order. And it's very close between those 3 teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think those would be my top 3 teams in the NFC. Huge shout out to Malik Willis. Huge shout out to Matt LaFleur, dude. This was what I underestimated most about this team. When Jordan Love got hurt in the Philly game, I freaked out, and I thought that things could spiral for Green Bay, and they obviously did not. Malik Willis is 2-0 as a starter, comes in to win this game for him. We can't even give him a save. I think he gets a win for this, right? Because he had to retake the lead. He had to go out there and win the game. I think it's just incredible what a great coach can do. I think that's what this shows us. Because if you think about how Malik Willis looked in Tennessee, and time in maturing naturally is part of this process as well, but turning a guy who, really struggled to throw the ball with any sort of accuracy, struggled as a decision maker, into an effective plug-and-play quarterback like this, it's really impressive. And I think they just have a very good game plan when he's out there. They run the ball really well. They use Malik's legs. And when it's there, you take a shot like he hit to Jayden Reed, who was wide open, but that's how you win this game. Their ability to win games with him has really made this season for Green Bay. And I think that you got to give a ton of props to them for that. And LaFleur is 62-29 in his career, Logan. I mean, what a brilliant offensive mind. What a great coach who I don't think got enough credit before last year, maybe, because people say, okay, well, a lot of those are with Aaron Rodgers. Fair enough. But also he inherited a 6-win team, right? They had a terrible year. And then it's just automatic 13 wins once he takes over. The Packers are just a class organization, man, and they're a really good football team, and they just continue taking care of business. Obviously, they need Jordan Love out there, and you really want him on the field for a huge divisional game coming up this week against Detroit, because as much as I like Malik, I don't think that's one you can win without Love. I think you need those massive balls. I think you need that gunslinger. I think you need a just special playmaker to keep up with this Detroit offense that is just unconscious. But worst comes to worst, Malik's still solid, and then you have your bye after that. So hopefully Jordan doesn't miss a lot of time. We really don't know specifics on that injury. And for the Jags, I'm just happy that Trevor Lawrence is playing better, because the first 4 weeks of this year was bad. I mean, he was brutally inaccurate. He was completing like 53% of his passes or something. Last 4 weeks, he's been good. I mean, he's got a 109 passer rating. He's completing 72% of his passes. He's got 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. Still a couple turnovers in this game. Bad pick, fumbled deep in Jags territory, which set up a Packers score. But as a passer in the second half, I really thought he was excellent. I thought that he really made some needlepoint accurate throws, showed his arm talent. I'm encouraged. I still do believe in T-Law. I'm definitely not as high on him as I was a couple years ago, because we haven't seen the progress that I would have expected. But it's just good to see him finding a rhythm and doing his job at the least. And Tank Bigsby's been balling. He's 82 yards a game, almost 6 yards a carry over the last 5 weeks. Brian Thomas Jr., we know, is a monster. This year is obviously a disaster for the Jags. There's no saving that. It's just about finding silver linings. And these core offensive pieces, we've said before, are the silver linings, remain the silver linings, give you some hope that once you are done with the Doug Peterson, Press Taylor era, there are things that you can salvage and build from here. They're in a bad spot, but I do like what we've seen from some of these young guys offensively. Shall we talk about the Bills, Logan, and what they did to the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, let's do it.
What'd you take away from this?
I mean, Josh Allen's my MVP right now, I think.
Ooh.
17 TDs, nearly 2,000 yards. He's only got 3 turnovers this year. Yeah. Josh is playing damn near flawless football, man. I put some respect on Josh Allen. I don't think this is a great defense. And I will say, Seattle gift wraps you guys this game. Speaking of self-inflicted wounds, Buffalo comes away with 2 big red zone stops in the first half. One of them, goal to go situation. The center just snaps the ball over Geno's head. They have to settle for a field goal. The next time they're in the red zone, one of those bad play calling. Seattle runs the ball 3 straight times when they had kind of been getting shut down by the Buffalo front. And then on 4th down, Seattle goes for it. It looks like they're going to hand it off again. And then Geno, I think, gets his foot stepped on by the center, and he just trips and falls down. Later in this game, Seattle was going to get or put Buffalo in a 3rd and long situation. Derek Hall has one of the stupidest roughing the passer penalties I've ever seen on Josh Allen. Like, just a play you can't make, gives him a free first down, leads to a Dalton Kincaid TD. It was hot on the sideline. Him and Jaron Reed were grabbing each other's face masks. They were screaming at one another. Yeah, just Seattle gave this one away. Like, they ended up collapsing and crumbling later in this game, right? Couldn't get anything going, but I think that had more to do with what had happened earlier in the game. I think it was just like them imploding as the game went along.
They definitely imploded. They also got their ass kicked. I mean, I agree. They shot themselves in the foot. This game was also 31-3, so if they're better in the red zone, it would have, let's say they get a touchdown and a field goal, it would have been 31. I mean, they were double in yardage. They just got their asses kicked. But yes, all of the emotional implosion definitely just made it worse.
Yeah, Geno Smith gets an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty at the end of it. It was just
so funny, though. Did you see how Smoot reacted when he threw the ball at his helmet? When Geno threw the ball at his helmet, oh my God, bro was clutching his pearls, and it got the call.
It did get the call. You can't instigate it, man. If the refs catch you at all, they're going to throw it. But so I thought Seattle gift wrapped them this one. But, Buffalo's a real contender, and it is impressive that I think Seattle's a good team. And in these nasty-ass conditions, Josh performed. But they also just take care of business. Again, that's the hallmark of good football teams. They take care, or of great football teams. They take care of business. And Buffalo didn't play with their food. Josh has played really well this year. I think he's my NFL MVP right now. And I've been really impressed with Buffalo's defense. This is a good offense that they just shut down in this one, man. Like, they got a little bit of help in those red zone stops, but Seattle's offense didn't really have anything going. I've been really impressed with this Buffalo run defense, but the Buffalo defense in general, they continue to impress me, man. Buffalo's, and it sounded funny, man. I want to say it was Aikman or somebody during one of the broadcasts was like, oh yeah, the Buffalo Bills are looking like real contenders, this and that. They're surprising. And it's like, yeah, I feel like Buffalo's been a contender this whole year. Maybe people who thought they were going to suck this year didn't expect them to, but I'm not surprised by these performances from Buffalo.
No, dude, I think that sometimes people underrate just taking care of business and just demolishing solid and bad teams. And I think the Seahawks are a solid team, but this was a very, very convincing win. I want to give a shout out to Keon Coleman. Okay, that's my biggest takeaway from this game and from the last 2 weeks, because there's been some Keon Coleman slander. In week 1, before he had even taken the field, Logan, we had people doing oh my God, the Bills let the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy. Oh my God, and Keon Coleman sucks. Can you believe it? Like, it was just ridiculous discourse. And 2 weeks ago, people were talking about him as though he sucked. Last 2 weeks, he's got 195 yards and a touchdown. He is an elite jump ball receiver, basketball athleticism, box out physicality, amazing in those spots. He mossed Reek Woolen today. And by the way, he owns Reek Woolen. Reek Woolen was talking shit to him 2 plays before that. And Keon made a play and he got up in his face and it fired me up. And also, he's a phenomenal blocking receiver already. I mean, he's just so big and physical. He excels there. And the question with him has always been, can he separate? Can he separate enough to be down the line a number 1 receiver? he's creating more separation as of late. And he doesn't have to be close to a number one receiver in this offense, right? He's your third or fourth target once Amari is fully integrated. And Josh trusts him is the big thing. Josh trusts Keon in these big spots. He has had a couple drops this year. He has one today. Josh made a beautiful throw, 2nd and 15, went through Keon's hands. But he also makes some plays that very few players could in those jump ball situations. So overall, I'm happy with him as the 33rd pick, and I think he's made a positive impact on this offense. And I like the Bills' play calling in this game. I really love the screens to Khalil Shakir, and Keon caught one as well.
The QB power to Josh on the left side, man.
No, yeah. What I will say about the QB runs, and this is a very little thing, but the QB draws have not been working this year. It feels like everybody knows that when the Bills go empty, if it's a goal to go situation, or if it's like 2nd and 5, 3rd and 5, right? One of those medium to go situations, that the QB draw is a very real threat, and they always have a spy on him. And like previously, those have been nasty, but this year they just haven't been working. But outside of that, I thought it was a really well called game because the screens minimize the risk in the really, really nasty weather. And I just want to give a crazy stat about Khalil Shakir, who I think remains underrated because he's a stud. Ryan Fitzpatrick tweeted this out. Khalil Shakir has caught 75 balls on 83 targets since last season. This year, he has caught 36 balls on 38 targets, Logan. He's catching 96.
Dude, he didn't even have
targets.
He didn't even have gloves on today, man. In the rain, he said, "I'm gonna just catch you with my bare hands."
Doesn't need him. To be fair, probably like 40% of those are screens, but he's nasty after the catch. He's got that running back vision. He follows his blocks and he's shifty as hell. And speaking of running backs and vision, James Cook is phenomenal. James Cook, I think, has some of the best vision and patience among all running backs in the league today, and they ran the hell out of the ball. Like, it's just a great game plan for these wet, tough conditions, and I feel like some people underestimate how effectively the Bills can dominate offensively in those conditions because they think, oh, Josh Allen, gunslinger, push the ball 25 yards downfield every play, and that's not the Bills' identity right now, and it's great, and they were great on 3rd down. Josh was great on 3rd down, and outside of a pick where Amari slipped and Josh made a bad throw anyways, it wouldn't have been a completion anyways, and the pre-snap penalties, it was a very clean game. But I will say the Bills need to tighten up with the penalties because they have 53 on the year. That's 10th most. And there's just been a couple of really ugly games. This game, the Jets game. But even with that, even with these penalties, most of them pre-snap on the offensive line, you put up 31 points, and Amari Cooper was barely involved in this game. And I think he is a legit number one who is going to make a killing once he does have that chemistry with Josh and that knowledge of this system. So really good win for the Bills. I mean, they're a damn good 6-2. I think they're a top 5 team in football, but I've been saying that throughout the year. And for Seattle, it's just a really bad game. The red zone disasters. They have 2 turnovers, totally lost their composure. And my concern with them as a football team is it's really just the Geno show, man. I mean, their running backs had 16 rushing yards in this game. The Bills' run defense has been bad this year. That's been the weakness of this team, period. And they shut down the run game because this line sucks. And they're without DK in this game, which is tough. And their defense is meh. I don't know. I think the Seahawks are fine, but it's probably going to be tough for them to make a wild card spot in an NFC that I think is pretty good. I picked them before the year to be a wild card team, but they're pretty average, I think, at the end of the day. Colts Texans, Logan. Interesting divisional game. This one goes down to the wire as well and actually had some stakes because with a win, Colts would have taken a tie for the lead of the division, but they don't win. The Texans win. What did you take away from this?
I didn't take away anything new, really, for the Texans. I think they've got a really balanced offensive attack. CJ is one of my favorite QBs in the NFL. So good at making good decisions, taking care of the football, limiting mistakes. Mixon still balling. The one thing that stood out to me was just like negative on the Colts. Like, I don't know if Anthony Richardson is going to be that guy, man. And some of the numbers are really staggering from Richardson's start. In this game, he's 10 of 32 for 175 yards, 1 TD with 2 turnovers. The interception he throws in his own red zone, I mean, just throws a
terrible
bad interception to Petrie. Like, it reminded me of it was Caleb Williams threw an interception in the flat against the Colts to Jalen Jones, where it was He waited like 4 seconds to throw the ball out to the flat. And the timing of that route, it needed to be out within 1 to 2. And same goes for this one. It's a curl route. That ball's got to be out the second he's on his hitch, or the defenders are going to read it and break on it. That's exactly what happened. AR waits too long, throws it. Petrie jumps the route. And there's 23 seconds left in the first half. Just gifts them points.
Yeah.
So that's problematic. They also go 2 of 13 on third down conversions versus Houston. The more problematic thing, Carson, on this year, Anthony Richardson has 4 touchdowns to 9 turnovers and a completion percentage of 44.4%. He's also got a 57.2 passer rating. The worst number out of all of these is how just how historically inaccurate Richardson has been. Carson, this season, he has the lowest on-target throws per pass attempt in the NFL with a mark of 57.1%. Not only is it the worst mark this season, it's the worst mark in the history of tracking data for those advanced passing stats specifically. They've started tracking them since 2018, so it's a decent sample size too. The concerning part about that stat, it's by nearly 10%. The second worst on-target throws per pass attempt mark is Zach Wilson at 67%. Like, Anthony Richardson is historically inaccurate, and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
They always talk about, how few pass attempts Richardson has since high school, right? They talk about how few games he has started since high school. Anthony Richardson is one of the most inexperienced NFL quarterbacks in terms of a snap count since he has been out of high school. So I'll give him some grace there. And he does connect on the big shot plays. Every game, there's one of them. Yeah. He's got the 69-yarder to Josh Downs in this one. Nice. Say what you want about AR. He's at least going to have that one home run every single game. But it really is, Carson. Anthony Richardson reminds me of an elite power hitter, like a Adam Dunn. I know that's a deep cut, man, but that's when I stopped watching
Chris
baseball.
Davis?
Great. That might be a better poll because Davis had that historic, hitless streak.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a great power hitter, man. He's going to give you a home run, every game or two, but he's going to strike out probably 80% of the time. And that's how I feel with Richardson right now. I don't want to make any big declarations on if Anthony Richardson is going to figure it out or not, because he certainly has the tools. He's got the arm. He's got the legs. But it's all the technical stuff, man. It's the timing. It's the nuance of the position. It's the situational awareness. It's all the little things at the QB position that worry me about Anthony Richardson. And the beauty of it is there's not a time crunch for Indianapolis. This isn't a team that feels like they need to win games or be super competitive right now. But there's a lot of technical things at the quarterback position, specifically accuracy and timing and just feel. That Anthony Richardson has a long way to go in that I'm worried about, man. I'm worried about him figuring it out. And specifically, that accuracy stat really concerns me, man. Like, he has been historically bad when it comes to being just an accurate quarterback.
Yeah, the accuracy can just be brutal. And he really has to get smarter, man. I mean, there's just no excusing that pick to end the half, right? You can't put them in a goal to go spot with 23 seconds left. There's no reason for them to touch the football at all. And there's just a couple other mental errors. Final drive, stayed in bounds on a long run and ate up like 20 seconds where it's like, I get it, man. You're trying to get those 7-8 extra yards. You already got 15. You already made a positive play. You need 45 seconds on the clock more than you need those extra 7-8 yards when you're still that far away. And throughout this game, I just think there's some stuff where he's holding on to the ball for too long. He's taking sacks. I will say there were a lot of near misses early in this game. I mean, he was 2 of 13, and I was like, it's not a bad 2 of 13. Before he threw the pick, he attempted some tight window throws. I mean, he needs to just understand that you can't hit a home run every play, right? He does not look at the underneath stuff. Everything is attempting to make a big play, but he did have some pretty accurate throws into tight windows, like a couple good throws off receivers' hands are broken up, but there's no question you would be way better. I think significantly better off trying to win games today with Joe Flacco out there. So that's the thing. I have been excited about Richardson's physical tools. because they're so special, right? I mean, he is a one-of-one athlete in NFL history. He is Cam, he is Josh Allen, and he tested even a little bit crazier than those dudes with just the raw speed. And I was thinking maybe next year is when he takes the leap, right? I think it's further out than that if it happens. I think it's 2 years away, right? And I do believe in Steichen, and the talent here is overwhelming, but he's far away, dude. I mean, it's not surprising when you look at a stat line and go, yeah, he's 10 of 32. In fact, when he was 2 of 12 with 81 yards and a touchdown, I said, that's quintessential Anthony Richardson, right? You have 80% incompletions, but he hits on that one massive touchdown. That's just not going to cut it, though. You need more consistency from the quarterback position, and that's going to be what determines his viability as a starting quarterback. There's really clearly a star ceiling in there, but I do become more concerned about the downside with him. And that's kind of my only takeaway from this game, because the Texans, they just took care of business. I will say, I owe Joe Mixon an apology, except he did have a fumble today that was almost taken back for a touchdown before the Colts defender was ruled down, but he's been really good this year. He's been really good this year, and I've been a Joe Mixon skeptic and a Joe Mixon denier, and he changes their running game when he's on the field. There's no question about that. Logan, there's a few games left. Anything else that stands out from any of them that you want to mention? If it's Lions, Titans, if it's Saints, Chargers, if it's Panthers, Broncos, anything real quick?
I got nothing on Broncos, Panthers. I've got nothing on Chargers, Saints.
Okay.
I just think teams beat inferior opponents. I will say, I mean, I think it's pretty clear. You tell me if you disagree. I think the Lions have the best offense in the NFL. And I
Yeah.
don't even know if this is the game to make the case, because half their freaking yards are off returns, man. They scored 52 points on a Titans defense that I liked. That was really good. They were number one in this game in total yards and first downs allowed. They were top 10 defending the pass and the run in terms of yards per attempt. But it's like it's like going from middle school to high school, man. We're going from JV to varsity, right? You're going from regular good offenses to Ben Johnson, the evil genius, and great offenses. And they barely needed Goff. That's what sticks out from this game. They were up 35-14. He had 8 pass attempts and 28 yards. He ends this game with 15 pass attempts and 85 yards. They win 52-14. Jahmyr Gibbs, back-to-back big rushes, 45-yard TD last week, 70-yard TD this week. The guy's a monster. Khalif Raymond has 190 punt return yards. Khalil Dorsey has a 72-yard kick return. I think this is the best offense in football. The competition I would give, Baltimore is up there for me. They're probably number 2. I still really like Baltimore. I really like Buffalo as well. I think Buffalo is elite. There's probably some other teams that
I have a top 5 in my mind.
Who are the other 2 to you?
So I'd go Lions 1. I think that the formula is just so
and right now
replicable.
They're at 33.4 points per game.
Insane. So I do think that they're number 1. I mean, everything is just working perfectly, and it doesn't require superhero stuff from the quarterback position. Even when you have a superhero like Lamar or Josh, who you do expect to deliver. It's crazy when you just run the ball for 6 yards at will and you're super efficient through the air.
Number 4, you have the Steelers with Russell Wilson, correct?
I have the Steelers with Russell Wilson, Logan. They're my number 4. No, so I would go Lions 1. I'd go Ravens 2, Bills 3. I think once Amari's fully comfortable in the offense, there's a chance that the Bills jump to number 2.
I don't know.
Logan, think about where they're at. They basically haven't had an Amari Cooper, and they're still scoring like 29 points per game. But okay. Say
the Ravens have a Lamar and Derrick Henry, man.
The Bills have a passing attack that I think, say what you want, you have to trust a lot more in a big spot. Even though Lamar is the best he's been as a passer, there's still a gap there. But okay, I'm still saying Baltimore's 2 for now.
Well, it's
Buffalo's
not even
3.
It's more about the depth of Baltimore's receiving core, just like how much I trust Bateman and.
I trust Bateman to drop a 45-yard bomb that's put right in his hands.
That's what I'm saying. That would be the only
really good options now. It's a very nice.
And they've got a good running game. I'm just saying. I don't know, Lamar and Derrick Henry, man. That's a tough combo.
I think the Bills have the ceiling to surpass them, but I would have at 4 Washington, and I would have at 5 Green Bay. That'd be my top 5.
I like Green Bay. You know what? I like that. I think I tend to agree. But to me, the Lions are the pinnacle of it. One, because as someone so eloquently put in our chat, they have the best offensive line in football.
Yeah.
You win in the trenches. You win everything else. They have the best offensive line. They've got studs everywhere. And elite skill position talent. Montgomery and Gibbs in the backfield, St. Brown, Laporta, Jameis Williams, Khalif Raymond, and they got a QB I trust in Jared Goff. I certainly trust Goff less than I trust the Lamar
Of course.
or a Josh, but I do trust Goff more than I ever have, man.
Yeah.
Lions are the best offense in football to me. That's my only real takeaway from Tennessee. And again, the funniest thing is that they barely even used them. They put up 52 points off freaking returns, man.
Would you rather have Jared Goff or Dak Prescott as the quarterback of your offense?
Jared, I'd take the goof. Take the goofer. Dak has crapped his pants this year, and I tried, man, because I've been a Dak skeptic and a Dak hater for a very long time, but I was really moved last year. Dak has just shown me too many old Dak moments this year. And I don't think that's normal Dak. I think normal Dak is better than this, but he's shown me too many moments where he's under the interception today, where he throws into double coverage, that moonshot, the first pick. Just the two interceptions against the Steelers, they're just like rookie interceptions that a veteran quarterback should not be making. And another thing, Goff is not very mobile. I also do think you've seen Dak lose a little bit athletically and mobility-wise this year. Goff's never been a mobile guy, but that's another component working against Dak. Dak has dropped for me. Dak was a top 10 guy. I don't know if Dak's in my top 10 anymore, man.
Dak's dropped for me too. I don't know if he's dropped past Goff. And I know that there are some people who will say, like, Goff's an MVP candidate. Dak's got 8 interceptions this year. Goff is playing way better right now, but it's like you have to be conscientious of the situation, and you have to think about what Jared Goff has looked in anything less than optimal situations. There's no question he's got better from his Rams days, but in his Rams days, like, save the great seasons that he had in 2017 and 2018. After that, like, he sucked. And there's no question he's gotten better. But my point is, he is in far and away the best offensive situation.
It's not even close. Offensive heaven.
It is not even close. All of the other offenses we're talking about as being elite are so much more reliant on a special trait from their quarterback, having a special quarterback, period. That's not the case with the Lions. I love Jared Goff. I'm a Cal Bears fan. I want to be clear, and he's playing really, really well. I also think if you drop Dak in this offense, it would be every bit as insane. And I think that if you dropped Goff in the Cowboys offense, he could be struggling just as much, but he's playing better this year. There's just no question about that. And Goff's made some really bad decisions, and Jared has just been nails, man. He's just been slinging that thing dead eye on the money. And I do think the Lions have the best offense in football, and they're a machine, man. They're a juggernaut. Not much to say on the other couple games, in my opinion. Spencer Rattler, no good. Here's what I will say. I apologize for putting Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler conversations.
Thank you.
Bo Nix is better than Spencer Rattler, and he had a really good game today.
Are you still out fundamentally on Bo Nix?
I'm not a Bo Nix guy. Logan. You know, the Panthers defense can only move me so much because it's one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. However, it was a nice game for Bo Nix, and when rookie quarterbacks have nice games, you give them credit for that no matter what, because it's not an easy thing to do. I don't think that Bo Nix is ever going to be a franchise quarterback. Could he be a starter? Could he be a spot starter, journeyman? Yeah, I think he can be that. But listen, I don't want to hate on the kid. He had a great game out there today. And showed up that number 1 pick, Bryce Young, didn't he? Bryce Young back out on the field. Yeah. Yikes. All right, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, as always, there's plenty more Nerd Sesh content. You can find all of our stuff on our YouTube channel, NBA Talk, NFL Talk. So good to have the NBA back. And we also have video essays, video breakdown, diving into film. I am going to start on a video about a specific NBA player very, very soon. So you can expect that within a few days. But so great to have basketball back. And you can listen to all of our full shows across all audio platforms. You can also follow us across social media, TikTok, Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. And if you want, you can join our Discord to chat with the fellas, to be part of the NerdSesh community in multiple ways, but on a day-to-day basis. It's a fun place to be. So with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Brabber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.